Good morning. I love it. Welcome. We are so excited to get started and we are going to dig right in. We have a ton of content for you today and I appreciate you making the time. We have a number of folks who are virtually as well. And of course, we are recording this so everyone has access to it for those things, those points that you missed and wish you would pay more attention to rather than texting and emailing under your desks. Right? Not that anybody's doing that, of course not. So, but you know, all kidding aside, at the end of the day, this is about business planning. We talk every day here at Home Smart that you are running your own businesses. You are business professionals running your own real estate practice. We are not salespeople. Agreed? Agreed? Awesome. I want to make sure everyone agrees. So along those lines, you need to have all of the tools necessary in order to run that business like a business. And that's what we covered here today. Yes, we're going to talk about goal setting. I'm going to do that right after lunch. We're going to talk about how do you plan for 2023. But bigger than that, we need to talk about how do we manage that business in ensuring that we're reaching those goals and accounting for the business aspect of our business. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we're here today in the morning, we're gonna focus on those details, running a business like a business. And I'm excited to say that we have some incredible professionals that are going to share their knowledge with you. And I want you prepared with the questions that are most important to you in your everyday businesses. Okay, this is an interactive conversation. This is not a speak at you presentation. It's a speak with you conversation. Okay, so with that, I want to say thank you, at least to introduce so you see the faces in the back of the room. Mr. Jeff Sock is here from Aflac Insurance. Give him some love. Tony Kringlica is here from Dimension Title. Seth Mint, you've all met, who's here with Tony here today. Dimension is also one of our sponsors for our event, so thank you very much for sponsoring. Okay, our second sponsor and also presenter is Mr. John Burrs in the back of Capital City Company. John is an accountant as well as an extravagant and incredible lender in the East Bay area, right? Extravagant. And Mr. Adam Vado is here from Northwestern Mutual. About financial planning. So we're going to talk about how do you insure yourself and your family. We're going to talk about how do you manage your taxes, your write-offs, all that money you're making that you need to give up. How do we save that money and not give up that money? And then we're going to talk about how to manage all that money that you're making and how do I make sure that I have that money and I can save it and I can invest it. And we're also going to talk about whether or not we should be incorporating. What are the benefits of incorporating? Many of you are incorporated, whether it's an S Corp or a corporation in general, and we want to know the bonuses, the blessings, and the curses of all of that. Okay, so with that, are you guys ready to dig in? Love it, love it. See that energy? That's what we want to hear. So we're going to start today. And by the way, programming note: we are reversing our second and third sessions because of flow of conversation. We did a team huddle with our presenters, and we found the flow would work better if we go after insurance. We talk about financial investment, then lead into the tax preparation, and then into the legal consultation. So quick programming note, those will be reversed. So with that, Mr. Jeffrey Sock, join us up front. We appreciate it. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Jeff Sock from Aflac. I'm here and I'm filling in for your actual agent, Barbara O'Leary. But I want to give a shout out to Dean for making Aflac available to you as an employer, because these plans, especially for independent contractors, are not really available to individuals. So making it available through deduction is really an awesome thing. You've been doing that for a while, haven't you? Yes. Last time Barbara was here, at least it came with stacks of folders. Do you remember that? Yes. I think it was last year.
Yes, we had a lot of them left over.
Yeah. I know you guys aren't looking at all this. And Aflac is pretty simple, and I'm gonna tell you how it works. You're in your swag bag, in addition to a duck, which I should have brought out there. In Aflac, right? Simple one pager, and it's got Barbara O'Leary's contact information, her phone number and her email. Dean is also going to send out that electronically so that if you lose the sheet, you can still contact Barbara. And make an appointment to meet with her either in person or by phone. We can do it either way. Dean mentioned that he wants it interactive. I don't know how much you guys know about Aflac. I'm going to explain the plans that are available here and how Aflac in general works. But I've been doing this 18 years in August. So raise your hand at any time while I'm speaking and interrupt me. It won't break my flow of telling you how Aflac works. So I have a typical way of talking about Aflac, and I'm going to reverse that as well today, just to focus on what I think might be more important to do. But before I do that, let me explain in general what Aflac is. Aflac voluntary benefits offered through payroll deduction. In this case, it's not like payroll per se, but it is a deduction. You don't have to mail a check to Aflac. You will take care of that. That'll come out of your money. Aflac plans pay policyholders directly over and above health insurance. To help out with things like co-pays, deductibles, time out of work for loved ones. So Aflac doesn't pay the providers. Aflac pays you. Something interesting, Aflac's prices never go up. Now, how can that be? Well, every 5 to 7 years, sometimes that varies, Aflac will come out with new versions of the plan. You don't have to upgrade, you can take what you have. So I had people on 18-year-old plans, one that I sold when I first started for $3,000 with Aflac. Filing claims, pretty important, pretty easy. Apple, Android, online, or Barbara. Barbara loves to file claims and help people. So if you have a claim, and you're frustrated by the technology, or you just don't know what to get, and you enroll with Barbara, go ahead and call. Now, some of you in the room might have a plan with Barbara. If I want to review that, make sure you're getting most from it, that you have any wellness benefits that are to you. So with that, I'll dig into the plan themselves. So typically I start with the accident plan because it's kind of an awesome plan, but I'm going to talk about short-term disability first, because as independent contractors, what happens if you can't work? Well, Aflac has a plan. You can choose a benefit period of 3, 6, 12, or 24 months. You can choose how long you wait before it kicks in. It's called an elimination period. Think of it as a waiting period, but it's not really. So you can customize a plan that fits your budget, but make sure you have money coming in if you're sick or if you're injured. It does have some underwriting questions, but it's very relaxed. And I was talking a few minutes ago. I'm an independent contractor like you guys. So several years back, I was talking to my financial planner, and I have an Aflac disability plan, right? Why wouldn't I? And he said, "What do you do about long-term disability?" Well, your Northwestern people don't have short-term disability. Aflac does. So we can insure you for say 6 months, and they can kick in at 6 months, which would drastically reduce your long-term policy because their exposure is a lot lower. Aflac company exposure. On average, the average disability in America lasts 6 months. That means people who are out for a day and are off permanently, it's about 6 month disability. So 6 months will carry you with Aflac for most of your needs. And unfortunately, something major happening at Northwestern available to you. Any questions on that on disability? Oh, let me back up. What I didn't say at the beginning, all Aflac plans are completely portable. So not that anyone ever leave Dean, but if you did, you can take them with you at the same price you got here at the agency. You can keep them into retirement at the same price. We pay direct and pay the same price. Okay. Well, let me go into the sort of the unique products that people don't really know about. We have an accident plan, covers you 24/7 on or off the job, taken by the treatments you have for an accident. And when you think of an accident, don't think of a car accident, think of anything. I'll give you a quick example. Stupidly, about 3 months ago, I was trying to open one of those safety bottles with plastic on it. Instead of taking my time and getting it open or taking the scissors and going like that, I thought it'd be a good idea to go like that. So 5 stitches later, I went to the urgent care, and Aflac paid me when I was all said and done $285. My bill left over because I had a full plan like most people do. My portion was for $300. So $285, $15, that wasn't bad. That's on the small end. You know, on the big end, some years ago, I had a policyholder. She was a single mom. Her daughter was going to school at URI. She was in Providence. Daughter was coming home with a very bad car accident. spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Mother had to take 3 months out of work to care for her. As she got better, Aflac paid her over $13,000. So, it's not always about what you think it's about. And you're on the road a lot going to show houses and you think, oh, I'm gonna get in a car accident. Well, what if you walk into a house and, you trip on something when it was sprained ankle? What if you get a cut, a burn, a laceration, even a broken tooth? You're eating some food and you crack a tooth, you go to the dentist and pay. So big and small. You can cover yourself, you can cover insured and spouse, you can cover one parent family and then a full family. Obviously, it's more expensive. Kids can stay on the plan until age 26. And there's a wellness benefit on this plan, whether you use it or not, of $60 when you go in for one wellness benefit. You don't need any proof of services for that. Any questions on the activity? No? You should do a question.
I prepped them for you.
Nice.
You're just so knowledgeable
Oh,
that
okay.
they don't have questions.
So 18 years into this.
Yeah.
So the third plan I'm going to tell you about, see, 18 years, it's always the second one. Turn it around. Is our cancer plan. Now, when I came to work for Aflac, I saw our plans, accident, disability, life insurance. I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Why would anybody need cancer insurance? Well, back then we didn't have apps and we didn't have online filing, so I filed claims. So as I sold these plans, because I mean, it before, like, not even like sort of kind of weird. You got health insurance, okay, guess what? Turn disability over there. People were saying things to me like, hey, I paid my mortgage, I paid my rent, I paid my car payment, my spouse was able to take time out of work because cancer, medical reasons in general are number one reason for bankruptcy. Cancer, the highest among those for obvious reasons. And 75% of those people had good health insurance. But that doesn't cover a spouse taking time out of work and treatments that health insurance doesn't cover. So with the cancer plan, gives you $4,000 if you're diagnosed with cancer. Every year you don't develop cancer, that grows by $500. So I'm not a mathematician, but 10 years down the road, if you need to file a claim, you're going to get $9,000. Well, when you're diagnosed with cancer, typically you're not eligible for disability, even our own, because well, I see that skeptic. Why? Because you went for a mammogram or you went for blood work, or you don't typically get diagnosed when you're sick. So disability says the doctor says you can't work. So that's what it's going to be. And that $9,000 is going to give you time, and your spouse, if you have one, or whoever else is maybe helping you out, they have to take time out of work to go maybe get a second opinion or take you for surgery or treatment or biopsy. So that $4,000, but that usually, if you're unfortunately diagnosed with major internal cancer, is usually the smallest part of the benefit, because virtually any time a doctor or hospital gets paid, you're getting paid. Everything from radiation, chemotherapy, second opinion, emergency medicine, hospital stays, transportation and lodging. And there's a wellness benefit of $75 for each person to go for a cancer screening. So again, I'm going to tell you a story. We had a policyholder who was diagnosed with cancer in Rhode Island hospitals. It's 25 years ago by now. They told her we have no good treatments for you. So, kind of we're going to keep you comfortable kind of thing. Well, obviously she wasn't going for that. She went to the Dana-Farber in Boston for a second opinion. And Aflac actually paid her for going $500 for this going for a second opinion. When she got to the hospital, the Dana-Farber examined her and said, there's a great treatment for you, but it's not at this National Cancer Institute hospital. It's available at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So she flew to Rochester, Minnesota, where they examined her and told her, we've got a great chemotherapy specialized, can only be administered here. She lives in Rhode Island, 35 times once a week. There's an unlimited transportation benefit on this plan. So it goes by the miles, and I think it's $1,200 per trip is the highest you can go, and Dana-Farber is the highest in the miles. $1,200 is certainly more than enough to get 2 JetBlue tickets for you and your companion, spouse, friend, whoever, parent. She flew it 34 times. Aflac actually paid towards the hotel room as well, because it was outpatient. When I say 34 times, she stayed a lot of the week because she was way to find that. Right now, she's in remission, still has the plan. She's financially sound. She collected over $13,000, I think, or maybe more, maybe $30,000 for just the travel. All in all, her claim was $85,000. Now that's extreme. I say, if you need to use the plan, you want to get the least amount of money, because the cancer's not that bad. You got it very well. Definitely not. I didn't cover this, but you're eligible for this plan even if you've had cancer, as long as your last treatment was 5 years or more. And then another benefit, because if you were to call Aflac and want to buy this plan, not only would it be more money, if you would have to be cancer-free 10 years to buy it on a direct basis. So you're getting less money, and if God forbid you were in that situation, you can get it and be covered. Any questions? Yeah.
As an independent contractor, what's the average cost per month for an individual rental FM?
Say, cancer plan?
On the active plan.
Well, no, it's not, again, not any plan. So, yeah, so the accident plan for individuals is probably $6 a week. Cancer plan, probably 9 change, get it covered at no cost until you're 26 on the cancer plan. And some of the, benefits are actually higher on that. Disability is all over the place, depends on how much you make. You know, when, if you go for disability, you sit down with Barbara, it's gonna have to be your adjusted gross income, don't lie, because they're gonna ask you for your W, your tax return, that page that shows the AGI. Because, you know, they have to. Anything else?
Can I ask you to clarify, $6 a week for the accident plan, roughly, depending on the person, you know, I don't know how.
It's
Everybody's
yeah,
$6, and you said the cancer plan is $9,
we haven't changed for right now.
okay? You know, I mean, that's not a lot of money, you know, for properly insuring yourself, you know, and your family, so.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm also just gonna help you tag into that, right? I'm just gonna, for the benefit of the recording, I'm just gonna come up front, so just to help validate, so. We do have some of our associates that are on this plan taking advantage of it, and some have even filed claims without any argument or hassle whatsoever, right? We need to find ways as independent contractors, as business owners, to protect ourselves, because there aren't a lot of options out there, right? So we've created this opportunity with the relationship to have that. We also have Home Smart Health, which has insurance options for you as well. There are cancer plans, there are accident plans, there's even pet insurance through Home Smart Health. So look into that in comparison, right? But this relationship is critical for us because it also allows us to be local with that and to have even better rates. So I urge you to compare both and taking a look at it. And in validating it, you know, has anyone here fallen? I look. John Reebok. So not today, you know, and you know, I mean, just the simplest thing. We are out there on the road, we're walking into other people's homes. You know, in sharing stories, you know, I have 2 colleagues in years past that have fallen on a job. One literally slipped in the front yard showing the house, slipped. When the owner didn't clean up after their dog. Slipped, fractured her shoulder. And was out of work, could not work for 3 years. Because of all of the therapy and everything that had happened with her back and her shoulder. And another truly unfortunate situation is another colleague fell down the basement stairs. And she was there for a long time because nobody knew. Nobody knew that she was showing the home. When we talk about make sure people know where you are. So she was there for days. So since then passed away. So it's as simple as a trip. Now, I'm not saying that we need to worry about passing away on our job, but it's happened. But the simplest of tripping, people leave toys in the living room, whatever it is. I mean, the simplest haphazard incident, we can't control that. Now, we could say, well, the homeowner's insurance will cover us, will it? Okay, who knows? So these are the types of things that the simplest of things that can go wrong. When we say there's no hazards in our job, well, there are. It's literally as simple as slipping on wet pavement, right? You just don't know.
Even in infected paper cut, right?
Right, exactly. Yes, we all get paper cuts too. That's right. Mark.
A couple of things, Jeff, you said that if we had a previous plan with Aflac, my previous brokerage, I had Aflac. And I was told when I left that went away. Now, obviously, I haven't been paying for it since I've been here, so is that still in effect?
No,
Okay,
so,
Repeat.
so the question was, I had a plan before and, it lapsed when I left because I didn't keep paying for it. Is it still in effect? No, we have to keep paying for it, but how long has it been?
I've been here a couple of months, yeah.
So if it's within 6 months, I think you can reinstate it, so I will call Barbara.
Okay.
And she'll help you with that.
Because technically that should have been able to be.
You should have,
with,
yeah, you should have gotten a letter from Aflac.
Yeah.
It should.
Well, I'm not necessarily surprised, not for Aflac, but I was also told that the payment couldn't come out of a deduction. I had to write a check to my brokerage every month.
That is correct. To
Okay.
clarify, yes, we handle the billing, but we do need to receive that payment from you.
Okay.
But in our case, we do everything electronically, so we
Okay.
can work that out. So it may
All
not
right.
necessarily be a written check.
Yeah.
But it does need to be specific billing.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do ACH, so that's
Yeah.
not a problem.
All right.
So.
Great.
And Barbara's information, this flyer, by the way, everyone has a swag bag for takeaway. Okay, and it's in the hallway, so in the bag is this flyer with Barbara's information, and we'll have an email that will forward to everybody as well.
Very good looking.
Please.
Okay, so, on the accident and cancer plan, there's an item called the Aflac Plus Rider. It can be added to the accident and cancer plan, it's a rider, by rider means. And it gives you coverage for things like, heart attack, stroke, organ transplant, well, 15 big items. $5,000 if those things happen, and it's an issue. Once 6 months goes by, you're eligible again for those things at $3,000. There's a tier 2 thing, tier 2 event things like Lyme disease, meningitis, and encephalitis, bypass surgery benefit, and very interesting. In January of 2001, Aflac added coverage for coronavirus during coronavirus. So in addition to that, they had flu, pneumonia, and bird flu and something else, coronavirus. It was hospital only. It was meant to, help out those people that were really affected by, COVID. So what insurance company adds coverage for a pandemic, pandemic, that's the kind of company Aflac is. So the last item I'm going to talk about is life insurance. So Aflac has 2 types: whole life, which is permanent insurance, and term life. I would do a 10, 20 to 30-year term. We don't do any physicals, but we do some underwriting, so not everybody qualifies. So if that's something you want to take a look at, I encourage you to talk to Barbara. Barbara's very knowledgeable. She's been with Aflac probably 10 years, very coachable. Call her for a phone consultation or in person. She's fine with it. Any more questions? Yes.
2 questions. When you went and you got your stitches, did your payment go up? When you use it, does your payment go up?
So,
Jeff, if I may, I'm just gonna ask you to step closer to the microphone.
okay, so for the recording, the question is, because I use my plan, do the prices go up? No. The prices don't go up and you can't be canceled for any reason other than non-payment. Second question.
Okay, the woman that took time off to take care of her daughter that was in the car accident, did she have an individual plan or a family plan? Like, what if I have to take time off to take care of my aging parents? How would that be covered or would it not be covered?
Okay, the question was, in the story I told, the woman who took time off, this is for the recording, by the way, took time off to take care of her daughter. Would that work for an aging parent? It has to be somebody covered by the policy, and
Okay.
you can't cover an aging parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other question?
I don't have a question, I have a testimonial, sort of. So Aflac is so great to the point, my daughter,
Just a bit, Margaret, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry,
Just speak up a little bit for the.
Okay, yeah.
virtual,
um,
So he doesn't have to.
I think my daughter was about 16, and at that age, they don't ever want to do anything that you tell them to do. So there was a physical that she needed to have done, and she refused. She goes, I don't need it. And at some point I said, but if you do go get it, you actually will get paid for it. And she did. So. Yeah.
Use what works, right?
I think it was like $50 she got for just doing a regular physical.
That's great. Ramona?
I have another testimonial. My mother had worked for a very large nonprofit, and she had Aflac and for cancer policy. So about 10 years ago, she had cancer, and the money that she got then was huge. And then 2 years ago, she got it again, and it really made all the difference.
Yeah, I 18 years, I had tons of stories like that. I just told you one of them.
Yeah, like she's not in debt right now because of it, otherwise she would have been, and, you know, when you're on a fixed income, you know, insurance.
You don't get 1099 by Aflac either, so, you know, it's. You get a huge claim, you want to talk to your tax professional, but we don't 1099 anyway. Anybody else?
I'm only just gonna add to clarify the question on the billing. You know, ultimately, the billing would just be on your monthly billing. It's not a separate billing. We would just include it in any monthly billing of their ACH. So, agree.
That's nice.
This guy who didn't have much to say, you sure had a lot to say today. Any other questions for Jeff? And again, for clarify, Jeff is here representing Barbara, and we'll send out Barbara's information, and her information is on the flyer in your takeaway bag as well. So, any last thoughts? All right, thank you, sir. Please feel free to stay around and interact, but we understand you've got a busy schedule, so appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Everyone, Mr. Adam Beto from Northwestern Mutual.
Morning, everybody. How we doing?
Morning.
All right, first things first, knowing you were gonna chat with the financial advisor, financial planner today, did anybody have like things you were dead set on asking? Because I'm really quick to jump from topic to topic, so I have something in the back of my brain I'm trying to remember to ask you guys. It's really hard to just pay attention to everything else going on. So is there anything specific right off the rip? Fire away.
Let's say we were going to invest $5,000.
Sure.
Is that $5,000 deducted from my taxes I'm going to pay?
It depends on which account you put it in.
Repeat that question for us, Adam.
Yeah, sure. So she asked if she were to contribute $5,000 towards an investment account, if that $5,000 would be deducted from her income. The short, quick, easy answer is it depends. And unfortunately, a lot of the answers that I have for you are it depends. Because what type of accounts are you putting it into? What other accounts are you using? Are you married? What does your spouse use? Right? So there's a lot of different questions. What is the objective of the money? How long do you need it to, like when do you need it to be liquid? So there's just a lot of different things that come into it. So today I'm going to kind of cover things just from a high level, talk about my practice, talk a little bit about Northwestern Mutual, some of the things that my current real estate clients have found a ton of value in. You know, thankfully I have quite a few friends that are in this space, so I do get to hear about the trials and tribulations that you guys go through. And what I've learned is that your business, a real estate practice, I run a financial planning practice. So a lot of the things that you go through and you struggle with are things that we go through too. So there's a lot of, synergistic qualities between the two businesses. Show of hands really quick. How many people in here have a financial plan? Okay. More than expected. So when you have this financial plan, is it reviewed annually, semi-annually? Just, I guess, a quick little answer if anybody. Annually, right? Okay, so I would say that that's probably a really important meeting. So with financial plan, what you're trying to do is create a roadmap. Constantly, I run into extremely successful people and I'll ask them that same question. Do you have a financial plan? And then they'll just slap a stack of papers on the table and it's an investment account with a rate of return number. And they're pointing straight to that number. Last year, they were super excited. They're pointing to it. They're like, look at that 25%. This year, they don't even want to look at that. Exactly. So that's not a financial plan. That's an investment account. Investment accounts are important, but that's not what I do. Northwestern Mutual is a wealth management company as well as an insurance company, but the advisors that work through Northwestern Mutual are financial planners. So that's why we say we run a financial planning practice. We can assist people with wealth management. We can assist people with risk management. So just to play a little bit in the Aflac, risk management sandbox for a sec. My dad had his hip replaced, was paid through Aflac while he was out of work for about 3 months. So I will definitely stand there and say that Aflac made a difference in my life because that helped me. I was still living at home at the time, going through college, and I didn't feel the pressure to go back to work to make extra money to help pay things. So, that's just my little connection with Aflac. But so you guys can get to know me a little bit. My name's Adam, right? Grew up in Rhode Island, from Woonsocket, but I'm a Rhode Islander through and through, 15-20 minute drive and start thinking about packing a bag, all those corny cliches. But I think that my connection to the community is why I've been able to be successful in this business, because I am not from a corporate family. My mom is a teacher in elementary school, and my dad has fixed furniture for his entire career. So, you know, I didn't grow up with a financial plan for my household. My parents' first meeting with a financial advisor was the first week of my internship at Northwestern Mutual. My dad was sweating. But like I said, through and through Rhode Islander, and I was looking around the room quick because I got my education from Bryant University, and I find that Bryant University is one of, if not the best, not only in Rhode Island, but in the US. And we're slapped. We got URI, Rhode Island College, Brown, and Johnson. Yes. I'm gonna have to make a call to Brian, get some exposure.
You're here to represent.
Right, no, so, hey, look, I'm all about good schools, so, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about schools in a second, but Northwestern Mutual, look, I've interviewed for Merrill Edge, I interviewed for Fidelity, and I have nothing bad to say about those companies. But the major difference of working with an advisor at a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual is we have the ability to be a one-stop shop for financial planning. The guys at those firms, all they are is investment brokers, and like I said, that's important to a financial plan. But realistically, what do they care about? You putting X amount of dollars into an ISA each month to go towards certain investments. And the day that you retire and start taking money out of those investments, you become their worst enemy because you're taking money directly out of their pockets. So that's what I'm going to kind of lead into here is with financial planning, there is a very, very big difference between wealth accumulation and wealth distribution. Right, so everybody in this room is more in the wealth accumulation phase of life, which I would argue is a little bit easier because all you need to do is, all you need to do, set an amount of money that you're going to save each month and have a plan for that money to be saved each month, right? And as long as you're consistently working, creating revenue and putting money into these accounts, we have over 50 years of data that shows that if you put money into the market, you will generally win as long as it's correctly invested over a 20-year span. Right, I understand that there might be ups and downs throughout the year, but if you look at a 20-year track record of the market, everything's going to be great. So wealth accumulation, right, where I can step in and assist you in that part of the world is to create different buckets, right? And the reason why we need to create different buckets is because there is a billion variables that are going to impact you from now until the day you retire. Right, I don't care if you have 5 years or 30 years before you retire. There is millions of variables just in that 1 year, right? So if you have all of your eggs into one basket, like, you know, a lot of the guys in the real estate space are like, Adam, I only invest in real estate. I'm going to have, you know, my rental income. I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that. And that's all well and good. And I know you can be really successful doing that. But what if taxes change? What if laws change? What if this changes? What if people start moving out of your apartments, right? So there is risks with that space, just like there's risks with being in the market, right? So I understand that it's both sides. But for you guys, what I can help you with is to decide what type of accounts you're going to be saving into for certain life goals. So in my first conversation, really trying to get to know my clients from a personal, professional, and financial level, right? Are you married? Do you have children? What are you saving for? What are your cash flows like? I understand that you're a business owner, but what does your spouse do, right? So a lot of stuff that people are talking about nowadays is children's education, right? So 529 is, you know, the very common plan, but if you're noticing not, admissions to colleges are way down because people are becoming business owners. So people are constantly asking me, well, how can I save money for my child? Not inside of a regular bank account, but still able to grow, earn money, but make it liquid to them when they hit that age. So we talk about alternatives to education savings, right? It might be a 529 is the best plan for you, but there's different things that we can definitely introduce you to that might be more beneficial based on your specific situation, right? Other things that we talk to people about saving for major purchases. I mean, look, I can't tell you how many times this year I've heard, I want to buy a house. You know, so helping people to save.
You're gonna unleash the wolves.
I know, it's like, but helping people, like, people want to, oh, we're gonna invest into the stock market to go and buy a house a year from now. It's like, well, what's the risk reward trade? So helping people to save for that intermediate short-term goal is usually more of, I'd say, like a luxury good. The biggest thing that I like to talk to people about is retirement, And the reason why I like to talk about retirement isn't because like that's like the buzzword, it's because there is literally no one in this world that is saving for your retirement other than you.
Realtors don't retire.
Once that plan due. Right? So what I like to talk about with retirement and specifically financial planning is if you have a financial plan, it will increase your quality of life because you're gonna feel more secure about what you got going on. Right? So just to kind of get into the retirement side of the world, right? So we talked a little bit about wealth accumulation, right? Talking about funding these different assets. The reason why I want you to fund different assets is because I don't know what the wealth distribution phase is going to look like, whatever it is, 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the road from now. So as business owners, we can open up different accounts, right? You might have heard IRAs, Roth IRAs, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, 401ks. There's a lot of different accounts. They have different income restrictions. They have different contribution limits. So I can definitely get into the specifics of those with you, but it really is on a per person basis what makes the most sense, right? I am of the big proponent of tax-free accounts, right? So I'm a big fan of Roth IRAs, but I realize there are limitations, whether you make too much money or you can only contribute $6,000. Right, so that's where me and my accountant friends always like to get into a little banter, right? Because they're like deduct, and I'm like, realize. But for you guys, it's going to be a decision of whether you want to open up generally in the real estate space, simple IRAs or SEP IRAs.
Can you repeat the second one again?
Yeah, of course, SEP IRAs, SEP. So simple IRAs allow individuals to contribute up to $14,000 into those accounts. And when you contribute up to that $14,000, that is deductible from your income this year. So that would be an account where you could deduct the income. So if you guys are doing really, really well, you're looking at your tax number, or at the end of the year, you go and meet with your tax preparer and he says, hey, you're owing a bunch of money, but you can contribute money to an account to save yourself on that bill. This is that strategy. Right, so people like simple IRAs because the word, right, simple, makes it right, nice and easy. Another thing that's really cool with the simple IRA is that you can have a matching kind of contribution, almost like if you're working at a corporation, right? So you contribute 3% towards your simple IRA and your business also matches you 3%. So if you are big enough to the point where you start bringing on employees, this is something that can help you to attract and retain talent. Now, for simple IRAs, there's a couple of different strategies that I use for clients, right? We can go into like a brokerage type of strategy, which is buying and selling mutual funds. People are usually relatively familiar with that. Another simple IRA strategy that we use with clients is in the form of variable annuities. I know that annuities doesn't always carry the best connotation when people go and do their research, but I think that's because not all annuities are built the same, right? Not all mortgages are built the same. Like things are different. If you add on a million different riders and attachments and features and such on, you're going to fee yourself to death, right? So just the difference of the two spaces is whether you prefer, more of a simplistic route or more of a complex route, right? And that's going to depend on the person. Now for the, so I guess I'm sorry, I go a little bit quickly there. Did anybody have any specific questions regarding the simple IRA before I jump into the next guy?
Is the 14,000 per individual or is that per couple?
That's really big, individual.
Individual.
Yep.
Is there anticipation that's going up?
So that is the 2022 number.
Okay.
And there is a catch-up provision of $3,000 if you were over the age of 50 years old. So for our friends that are cranking it, yes, please.
Can you explain what a catch-up?
Yes, sorry. So the IRS allows individuals who are 50 years or older to contribute more towards their retirement accounts in an attempt to catch up to their retirement goals. So instead of the 14,000 that people underneath that age can contribute, they can go it up to 17,000. Just to put the table for a second, I was going to go into something else, but that like I said, I need to stay. So SEP IRAs. SEP IRAs are generally used by the individuals that are doing quite well because there is higher limits for the deductions, right? So the rule with SEP IRAs is that you can deduct up to 25% of your gross income or this year, 2022, I want to say it's $61,000. Whichever is less. So I believe the number is like 243. If I'm not mistaken, that you would max out on that. But that'd be up to the 25%. Yeah, 25% of your gross income, or that 61,000, whichever it was. Yep. So that account, like I said, people that are really cranking, making some good money, hey, I need to hide something, I need to deduct, I really don't want to be sitting in this 37% tax rate, I can jump down, you know, what, 8% or so, right? If I do this, that's the account where we're gonna go into. Right, so the benefits of an account like that, right, you can deduct a whole lot of money, right? That's a really, really good place for you to start doing some of that tax. Some of the, I guess maybe the pitfalls with the SEP is that if you have employees, whatever you contribute for yourself, you're contributing for them. So that is not the plan. If you don't want to pay out a bunch of money to your employees, right? So the SEP might be a better option.
So I have a couple of questions for you. Now, when you say about different type of IRAs, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a few. If you set up, let's say you decide you're doing the simple, are you committed, next, what happens if, you know, we can only hope or predict or strive for our income, but we don't have a fixed salary every week, and that's a big problem when you sit down with financial advisor. I found myself.
Yes, of course.
But then you have those situations, that maybe 1 year it's great and you were able to put 50 grand aside, but then the next year you don't have it. What happens then?
I get what you're saying, so
Clarify with the question.
yeah, of course. So she was asking that what is the process like for transitioning between the accounts? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Was that kind of summarizing the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so as for and contribution flexibility, right? So as for contributing towards the accounts, that's one of the best things is that it isn't a rigid schedule. You can contribute monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, that is completely up to you. Now, as for how much you can contribute is based on that plan. So generally you can, that's why it's important to meet with the financial advisor and have a good idea as to what your business is going to look like and what your spouse's income is going to look like. Because I understand you might be a rock star in year 3, but by year 7, you're gonna be like tearing the cover off the ball, topping the state. Like, it might not make sense for you to start a simple plan. It might make sense today, but 3 years from now, it's not gonna make sense for you. So as for jumping between the accounts, you can't, as the pre-tax money can generally be transferred into another pre-tax account, but there might be a year between when you have to wait. But generally, if just, I guess, to make things a little bit easier, because we haven't talked about the other account, is there is just your regular plain Jane vanilla traditional IRA. So the reason I saved that one for last is because I'll be honest with you, it's not used too commonly by people in your space, just because the SEP and the simple are more appealing. Because with the traditional IRA, you can only contribute $6,000 per year. Right, so if you're making 60 grand, that's 10%, like, I don't know, they say financial planning gurus online say we need to save 20% of our income to retire. So you're not even getting there. So the reason why I think that account doesn't make sense a little bit more is just because if you are earning that type of income, you know, less than 75K-ish, you're probably better off parking it in a Roth IRA, paying your taxes today and letting that money grow tax-free for the next 30 years, because you know, I think for that individual that is in the beginning of their career, your mindset is this is the least amount of money that I'm going to make for the rest of my life. So this is the least amount I'm going to pay in taxes for the rest of my life. So do I really want to delay paying that bill to the future? I don't know if you go and look at tax rates of this 1960s, the highest rate was 91% and we were partying on the move. Do I think the tax rates will get back to 91%? No, or water fines level. It's not going to stay at 22 to 24% forever. Not when we keep printing out free money every day. So I know with you guys, right, hiding money, I love deducting money from my income, right? So that's why I think it's really awesome that you got the tax preparer here, because gray area. I really think it's important to have a good relationship with your tax preparer, because they're open to having conversations with you about what is a deduction, what isn't a deduction.
So that led me to the next question. When would you advise somebody to pay the tax, right now or later? I heard that when you're older, you have some
Yeah, so you're gonna love me. It
benefits.
depends. So, yeah, so she asked, does it make sense to pay your taxes now or pay taxes in the future? At Bryant, it's an accounting school, so naturally, a lot of my friends were accountants that I came up with, even though I was the finance guy. So they're always gonna tell you to deduct today because you know what taxes are today, so, or whatever, you know which rate you're gonna pay today, so on and so forth. So it really depends on what your income is now versus what you think your income is going to be in the future and what you have access to. So personal family as an example, actually, you know what? This is a better example, the clients that I was speaking with last night, police officer and woman who works at Litchfield. So in this scenario, gentleman has a pension, right? So you need to look at what your streams of income are going to be in retirement. Social Security, taxable, rental income, taxable, pension, taxable. Every single time you turn around for $1 in retirement, Uncle Sam and Auntie Rhode Island are gonna be standing there with their hand out like this. So if you know that you're already going to have forced taxable income in retirement due to a pension, and look, I know pensions aren't too common nowadays, but firefighters, teachers, police officers, right, there are some out there, some state employees too. Those types of individuals really, really need to focus on tax-free today because there's no way for them to manipulate how much money they're showing in the future. But I would make the same argument if you are in a top tax bracket and you can deduct your taxes to get yourself from that 35% down to the 24%. Like that is a good savings. I could definitely get on board with that. Right, so it really just depends on those sorts of scenarios. Also, I guess just to kind of follow it up, what benefits, like, are you married and what benefits does your spouse have? Right, so, you know, you might be lucky and your husband, your spouse works at a company where they have Roth 401k options and they can park $20,000 into a Roth 401k tax-free. Well, if they can do that over there, it might make sense for you to deduct money in your business so that when you guys go and see the tax man come January to April, or for those late filers sometimes after, you know, there's an answer for that. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess just as another aside, most times it's not all of one or all of the other, right? I explain this to people all the time. It's like, look, if you take, and look, I'm just using easy numbers here because we like easy numbers, right? If you're getting $25,000 from your Social Security, $25,000 from your pension, $25,000 from your 401k, $25,000 from your Roth IRA, the IRS is taxing you as though you made $75,000 this year and you're living off of $100,000. There's literally no way for me to manipulate your income if you go all pre-tax or if you go all tax-free. But I can pull those levers and create those streams, right? So that's why it's important to meet with your financial planner before you want to retire as opposed to when you retire. I get all worked up when I have to meet with people that are age 50 to 55 and this is their first time doing this. And I have to give them that really, really tough answer of, oh, like, you know, oh, we want to retire at 65. Well, can you afford to save $7,000 a month? What? Compounding interest. Right. Under the world. So just, I guess to go a little bit more into Northwestern Mutual, my family specifically didn't work with financial advisors because they felt like they weren't successful enough or making enough money for it, I guess. I don't know, I feel like that's kind of a common thing, like, you know, that's not my world, right? Save that for the Joneses. Northwestern Mutual, specifically my practice and everybody in Providence, we aren't fee-based planners. We're not going to charge you billable hours. We don't need to ask you to, you know, charge us for a phone call. We're going to, like I said, have that fact-finding introduction conversation, get to know your situation personally, professionally, financially. We're going to meet with our team of specialists. We're going to put together a plan, and then I'm going to present that plan to you in a simple PDF document. Once you have all of that stuff in your report, it's really up to you. You could take all the recommendations, some of the recommendations, or none of the recommendations, right? I see probably about somewhere between 20 to 25 new families a month. I can't tell you how many times I've heard no, right? I don't care. You guys, how many times have you heard no, right? Like people say no. But that's okay, right? Next opportunity. That's what I said. So it's just gonna depend on what you're trying to set up for yourself. Now, Northwestern Mutual, the reason why I think it's really important for you to work with a company like, or, I mean, yeah, sure, I'll keep on. I drink that Kool-Aid. Northwestern Mutual is a Fortune 100 company with $300 billion in assets and no liabilities. And the only other company that comes to the financial strength of Northwestern Mutual in the United States is Microsoft. The only one. So I personally get to provide my clients that mom and pop boots on the ground type feel of their advisor, where they're talking specifically to me. But I get all of the benefits of a corporate Fortune 100 juggernaut of Northwestern Mutual. The wealth management company is growing at the same rates as LPL now, so I don't want to hear that they're not competing with some of those big companies, because they are. We have over 300 CFAs and CFPs at our home office that are consistently doing research and putting together portfolios so that I can spend more time client facing with you guys and learning more about what we need to do, as opposed to maybe some of the analytical stuff behind the scenes. But having access to all of that stuff is a real big competitive advantage. Northwestern Mutual gives us software, right, so that we can create financial plans for you. I think it does become a little bit more relevant as you get closer to retirement, especially with your incomes being so volatile, right? I can relate to that. But I guess the last thing is that, you know, Northwestern Mutual has some of the most premier insurance products, if not the most premier insurance products in the industry. So I know that he had talked a little bit about short-term disability insurance. Northwestern does not do short-term disability insurance. We only do the long-term kind. I am a big advocate for long-term disability insurance because, look, I understand that 3 to 6 months out of work sucks, but I think not most people, but a good amount of people have that money in the bank account and can kind of weather that storm if they need to. No one in the world has enough money saved up to weather a 3-decade storm. So long-term disability insurance is that next step. It's a little bit tougher to get because you need to have 2 years of tax returns and average that out. So you do have to show some income. So that's why it's important not to deduct every single dollar that you make. But long-term disability insurance, big advocate of. Always try to get as much as you can. Northwestern Mutual has a great product because they're a mutual company. Every single time they have a dividend at the end of the year, it comes back to policy owners. This year, Northwestern had a $6.8 billion dividend, and that all goes back to policy owners. Helps us pay our premiums, which is cool. Just to touch on the life insurance side really quickly. Yes, different types of life insurance. It sounds like they cover more of the smaller policies with no underwriting, and those types of policies are really good for some people. But I'm sorry, if you are a spouse, a parent, a homeowner, a $200,000 policy isn't going to do anything for you. Let's just be honest with ourselves. You should probably have somewhere around, 10, 15 times your income for most people. Right, especially if you're a homeowner, especially if your spouse doesn't work, especially if you have kids, especially if you are the turnkey for your parents, right? Like, I mean, if something happens to you, are your parents okay to retire? Do you want to make sure that they're okay? That's another reason why I tell people to get life insurance. Now, just to kind of go a little bit above and beyond, term insurance, very important, but at the end of the day, term insurance, I call it one of two things. I either call it death insurance or I call it convertible term insurance. Term insurance is not meant to hold until the duration of the end of the policy. You buy term insurance because it's extremely inexpensive to get a large benefit. When you start to do financial planning and you're worried about, okay, now I'm not worrying about, is my kid's college fund going to be okay? Am I going to be able to leave a legacy, right? So financial planning coming back, legacy, want money to stay within the family. Life insurance is probably, if not the best tool to transfer wealth from one generation to the next. All proceeds from life insurance always comes tax-free. And if you have a permanent policy, it doesn't matter if you pass away when you're 45 or if you're 105. Your family's still going to get benefits from that. So some of the pushback I get is, oh, Adam, I'll just put money into my deferred comp plan or my SEP IRA and my family can inherit that. Well, that was really cool. But when the Secure Act got passed, they created the 10-year rule where your family has to take all the money out of that account over 10 years. So if I pass away and I have $1 million inside of my SEP IRA, my child has to realize all $1 million over a 10-year span. So if my child is successful making $200,000 a year, their taxes already sunk. Now they have to realize, let's say, 150 extra just to make sure that all $1 million comes out over 10 years. So I'm sorry, that's not a really cool thing to inherit. You inherit something with rules and taxes, and so, I'm sorry, if I'm already successfully making 200,000, now I have to realize 150,000. That $1 million that my parents are, worked so hard to build up, 37% of it or more is gonna go pay the taxes. Whereas if you had done a different strategy and said, hey, I'm not gonna put all of my money into qualified retirement plans, I'm going to also use life insurance as an asset in my plan. Now you're efficiently transitioning wealth from one generation to the next. And this is how banks, CEOs at corporate America, I want to say it's something crazy, like 61% of Fortune 500 CEOs use Northwestern Mutual's full life insurance. So insurance is definitely a great asset to put in your portfolio. Really, yeah, please fire away.
I do.
You do?
Wasn't usual, that's amazing, the dividend reinvestment, cash value, accumulated, you're going to borrow on that. It's big now, it's definitely.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the only account that, oh, sorry, he was saying that he has a Northwestern policy, you can borrow against it, the dividend power was great. The thing that I was gonna bring into it was just the fact that, I mean, I have investment accounts, right, Roth IRA, this, that, the other, the only account that didn't lose money this year is my permanent life insurance. Because it's not structured to the market. So if you guys do a little, I don't know if you've seen anything about like the infinite banking concept, it's kind of a hot commodity in the real estate space where people are loaning themselves money to buy real estate instead of keeping it in cash accounts. That is this. So life insurance is important because yes, you're going to need a death benefit. There's two things in life guaranteed. We talk a lot about taxes, but death is the other one. So if you're not planning for it and you're not prepared for it, you're leaving a world of mess behind you. So you can get a quick fix with a, death policy, convertible term policy, where realistically, you should be thinking about where does whole life insurance also fit into my financial plan to complement my real estate, to complement my 401 or IRAs, right? Not having all of your eggs in one basket so that when it comes time for me to do that wealth distribution planning that I was talking about, I'm just essentially like turning nozzles, right? Oh, taxes are high. We need the tax-free accounts. Taxes are low, switch it up. Market is doing great. We're living off the market correlated accounts. Market is down 25% like this year. Well, last thing we're going to do is sell from our market correlated assets because you don't want to realize a loss. Who would have sold a house in 2008 when it down 40%? We're going to do that. So I know I kind of went into a little bit of a tangent there. My mouth's getting a little dry. So anything that I didn't touch on that you all would be interested in asking about, learning about, any of those sorts of things?
Just a question, well, we're definitely gonna be talking later. I need equipment, I'm one of those people that has a stat,
Oh, yeah.
but, losing money.
Sure,
Is it like, I'm not versed in IRAs at all.
sure.
Can you lose your initial investment of like 14,000 or 17,000 or 61,000 or just the profit that makes?
Yeah, no, good question. So investing, so her question was, can you lose the basis of your investment? And the answer is yes. Investing in the market is just as a risk of investing in a house, right? I mean, anybody that bought a house, 2 months ago, is probably starting to see red right now. I can think of some people, well, I want to get in before the rates. Well, you didn't think about the price drop. So yes, it is an investment, but I want to remind you that if you're investing, so there's a very, very big difference between investing in, say, penny stocks versus investing in blue chip companies. If you're investing in blue chip companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, like what's the chance of any of those 4 companies wiping off the face of the earth in the next month? Everybody, how many people here have an iPhone? Or I should say, how many people don't have an iPhone? Keep talking.
No excuses.
I know, right? So you can lose money, but it's just like, I guess, there's a really, really cool interview that Warren Buffett did. Everybody's heard that name before. Warren Buffett, the most successful investor of our time, other than Nancy Pelosi. So Warren Buffett one day was interviewed a day after this market lost a ridiculous amount of money, and the interviewer's like, "Oh, Warren, how do you feel? You lost millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah." And he just kind of smirks and laughs. He says, "I didn't lose anything." And the woman's like, "Account value yesterday, account value today, Warren, what the hell are you talking about?" Said, "I didn't sell. I still own the same amount of shares that I did the day before." So think about the housing market, right? What was your house value in 2005, 2009, then 2014? So did you feel like you lost? No, you still held that position. So losses become very, very scary and detrimental to the plan. Only when, I don't want to say only when, but mainly when you're in the wealth distribution phase. The reason why that is because our brain has this weird trick where it's like if you lose 20%, you say, oh, if I gain 20%, it's all the way back. But if you start off with 100, lose 20%, you're down to 80, you gain 20%, you're up at 96. Right? And I'm just using small numbers to make things easy, but you get what I'm saying. So you can't, so that's why I like being at Northwestern Mutual, because we're not always like, I'm not going to sit here and fight you about rate of return on a page. If that's what you want to talk about, then this might not be the right plan for you. I would rather you have a nice ride, not this crazy roller coaster with Superman drops every year. So being in the wealth distribution phase, you don't want to realize those losses, because what it does is it accelerates your retirement plan. So that's where it's important to have those different buckets that I was referring to, right? So my clients that are retired this year aren't taking money out of their market correlated assets and realizing losses. They have stopped going on vacation for a little bit. They have Social Security. They've got some annuities, right? Because annuities take some risk out of the market. They create a, essentially you can buy yourself a pension if you don't have a pension. So if you haven't learned a little bit about annuities, they are a great tool to use for years like this, because like, hey, Adam, we live off 75,000, but we really want 100,000 to have some fun. Well, let's make sure that you have 75 every single year, no questions asked, between Social Security and these annuities, and then we'll just leave the rest of the money invested. So years like last year, shit, go on vacation as much as you want. Sorry.
Frank said worse. Yeah, but it, but that. Okay. But in years when it's down like this, well, you know, we're not going to be going on that extra trip. We're not going to be taking money out of the investments. And just to kind of bring the whole life insurance back into the piece, whole life insurance is a non-market correlated asset that doesn't lose value in these types of markets. So you could take money out of an account like that during a year like this, right? You can loan it to yourself, just to kind of bring that word back. And then next year, hypothetically, when the market comes back 30%, you take money out of your investments and you put it back into your insurance. So you're ready for the next dip in the market. So that's where it's like, yes, investments are cool, but financial planning is what gives you that peace of mind and that security and that like feeling of I'm going to be okay. And I guess just to help transition to some of the next guys that are going, I am in no way, shape, or form an attorney. I do not do any type of that type of stuff. I wouldn't want to think about what a bar exam and studying that looks like, but estate planning is part of your financial plan. Just like what I was talking about with these assets, it is very, very important to have your estate in order. I don't care if it's your house, your bank account, your retirement accounts, your life insurance. You want to make sure that that stuff is cleaned up. I have clients that father passed away, no beneficiary arrangements, houses in probate for 4 years because we were in COVID and they couldn't get to an attorney. So that might be an extreme scenario, but it's important to think about that.
That's not extreme.
All right.
I have a question
Please.
in regard to the college planning and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I had a college plan in place for my son. We did all sorts of investment and whatnot with that. He never went to college. So now what do? Do I have to wait until he's a certain age, or I have not asked my financial planner this yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So typically you lose a lot of the tax incentive. There might be some type of issues with trying to take the money out. There might be an alternative.
And enroll in.
Yeah, they can roll it to certain things, but it's just gonna depend on what else you have. But yeah, that's the type of thing we run into is, hey, my kid became like opened up a business. They don't know they run a landscaping.
I wish. He did my stock in every video game.
Oh.
About stock markets.
That was,
So let's say, forget for the moment the IRAs and all the other stuff, but stock market itself, do you recommend investing in it? Do you guys offer that?
yeah, so it's funny, I was thinking of corny slogans to say when I was standing up here, because I feel like that's what's sticking in people's mind. So I think in your business, they say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. I've heard that before.
Yeah,
It's not trying to time the market, it's time spent in the market.
Yes.
So look, I can't tell you how many people are banging down my door trying to invest in the market when it's up 20%. Is that when you should be investing in the market?
still waiting.
So that's all right. So this comes into a big question I get of Adam, can I do lump sums or do I have to do monthly? So a strategy is called dollar cost averaging, right? So if you put all $7,000 into the stock market on one day, the stock market is very much a supply and demand type of transaction. So if you're trying to buy $7,000 worth of stock, you're driving up the price on yourself. Versus if you say spread that $7,000 out across 12 months, guess what? If you put all your money in January right now and you look at your account today, you'd be pretty darn upset. I understand you'd still be upset if you're person two, but if you were to invest in January, February, March, April, May, so what happens is, yes, you're buying some of the high prices, but you're also buying some of the low prices too. Right, so yes, there's going to be times when you feel like, darn it, I'm putting money into this thing and it's just sliding down. But that's because it's impossible to predict when the next day that's going to come up is. And if somebody is going to sit up here and tell you that they could, they're liars, because they wouldn't be working anymore, right? They'd be retired because they'd make $1 bajillion. Helpful?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Did we have a question over here as well? I saw our hand up. No? Okay.
Can I, I'm sorry.
Please, no.
Well,
You're asking the question that everybody calls testimonials. Please.
Testimonials,
Right.
because I have to say that this year I, finally realized how old I am, I guess, and how it hit me. So, I decided to take control of it and not control, but to educate myself at least. And I have to say that I must have sat down with at least seven different financial advisors. And not until I sat with somebody from your company, that I actually felt like that person was out there to listen and to help versus to try to sell me a product. And there's a huge difference. I have a very good friend, very, very smart friend who works for GTech, makes a great amount of money, and that's who he uses. That's where I got the name from. And when I went for that meeting, I was like, oh my God, this is, now I feel like, and I can actually have a conversation.
Yeah, is he in Providence?
Yeah.
Everybody in Providence, they like people there.
Joe?
Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that was great. That was a really great meeting. And especially when you go to a financial advisor, first thing they ask is how much you make a year. Well, I don't know.
Right, good question.
I don't know.
It's a bad.
January 1st, I kind of look at my business plan, I'm like, how am I going to do this again?
Yeah.
Set those lofty goals and
Zero.
pick up the song.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the financial planning aspect of things, I don't use Northwestern, but I seriously. A lot of times, I know realtors wake up in the middle of the night, like panicked, like, what are we gonna do tomorrow? How am I gonna find business, etc. Knowing that I have a financial plan alleviates a lot of that stress. And being able to talk to somebody like yourself and sit down and say, where am I going? How am I doing? What am I gonna be able to take home when I get to this point? Makes all the difference in the world, so.
I agree, yeah, just to steal the slogan from my buddy John, if y'all were here when John did this before, John Gallego, he says AAA planning. Good accountant, good attorney, and good advisor to bring it all together. If you have those three people in your corner, you're probably gonna have a pretty bulletproof plan.
I actually have one more question for you.
We planted her.
I gave her the script. I'll give you the $20.
So, for example, like, we don't have that, but there's a lot of realtors that have another job. They may have a full-time job working for a corporation, and they have a 401k, and they still do very well as realtors, but they have the 401k.
Sure.
Now, let's say that you have employer's contribution, whether that be 3% or whatever that may be. Is it wise to invest more into that 401k over the employer's contribution?
You know, so.
It depends.
It depends. So I'll use a real easy example. Client contributes 7% more than what's required towards their pre-tax 401k.
Mhm.
They are in their early 30s, so income trajectory over the next few decades, it's going up. Right, they have a good degree or something like that. Well, That type of individual is probably in the lowest tax bracket that are ever going to be in for the remainder of their life, making $75,000 this year, potentially looking at 150 in 5 years. So there's no reason in my brain and based on a lot of my modeling, you know, disclaimer, motions. Wait to see the plan. That person should probably be doing whatever it takes to get the match. And then taking that other 7% and parking it into something tax free. Right, just to overly simplify it. The match is there and I like matches, but there's no reason why you should be doing more than what's required for it if it's the tax deduction isn't a extreme benefit for you this year. And for the individual I was just referring to, it doesn't make sense. Now, you're, you know, the 45-year-old director, you got the nice big corner office. That person's probably close to, if not at max earning potential, that type of person, you're more likely going to contribute as much as you can above and beyond the match because you need the deductions this year. Right, so it depends on where you are in your career, what your income is now, what your income is going to be over the next few decades, and then I guess it also matters what type of athlete. Do you even have a Roth, right? If you've been saving for 20 years and you don't have any type of Roth IRA, all of your money is taxable in the future. The government doesn't do a good job of keeping things consistent that we like. Right.
I guess that's the same thought as if you have a spouse that has.
Right, so that's a whole other thing, right? It's like, you know, are you the breadwinner? Does your spouse make more than you? Right? You know, and also another thing, and this is just kind of like laws, right? If your spouse is an active participant in a plan at their work, it does limit what you can and can't contribute to on your work. So that's why just being married adds a whole nother wrinkle into it. Getting married in January, so. Yeah. So.
It still makes it better.
Oh,
Right.
I know, exactly. So I'm excited. She doesn't know about it, so she'll find out. Yeah, of course. I know, I was like, she don't.
Your spouse has his own business planner, should we use the same one, or is it okay for us to have different business planners?
So I, no. that's fine. So her question was, if your spouse has a financial planner or financial advisor, should you also have a financial planner, financial advisor? So I think that if you're a really, really, really good financial advisor, you are so damn confident that your plan is a rock star that you can say, go ahead and try it with somebody else. So I have no problem with my clients taking on my financial plan and going and comparing it against somebody else, because I would love to hear to see what they would recommend that I have done already. So I think it's good to get second opinions, because I think we can all agree that no one person can cornerstone the market, right? Some of you sell East Greenwich, some of you sell Pawtucket. Very different markets, I would guess, right? So sorry.
Can I break that down further? So I think to the question, breaking it down is not about a second opinion. It should is it okay if one spouse has a different advisor than the other? Or do the joint assets come into play and does that cause confusion?
Sure, so there is definitely some conflicts that occur if you try to have two advisors, right? Because one of my first clients that I ever brought on, I was only working with one of the spouses, the other spouse had their own planner. But the problem was the other planner wasn't very open, and this guy was more of an investment broker, he just handled an IRA for the client. But the problem was I was having a difficult time getting the information about that spouse's information. So it was creating gaps in the plan, right? So they were coming back to me with arguments that, hey, they can't contribute to a Roth IRA because of this. And I came back to them like, well, they can contribute to this, but they can't contribute to this because of X, Y, and Z. So there does create some struggles there. What I've found in that scenario is I've slowly but surely started to take over more of the financial plan, just because I was being more of the planner versus the investment broker, which is what they were getting. But yes, you can have one guy for insurance and one guy for financial planning. You can have one spouse and one spouse. It's probably not a great idea, because if I have you and someone else has your spouse, like I'm probably not going to sit in a room with that other advisor and have a conversation about you. So that's the struggle with it. I was tread lightly.
Tread lightly, right? So I just want to make sure that we are aware of our timing. I know you're gonna kind of, no, that's great. Great content. So any last quick questions that weren't handled that you're gonna be disappointed if we go to our next presenter? I just want to add also just along the line of testimonials, there are a few in the room that do work with Northwestern Mutual. I personally work with Adam and his team. And I want to just say, you know, any of our presenters today are people that I trust in my business, not just people that I ask to just come in and speak, right? So if you at least need a consulting session with any of them, do that. You need to make sure you protect your business. As a small business owner myself, yes, HomeSmart is a small business. We have a large agent population, but we're a small business. I can attest that it's, you know, it's not about, hey, take all your liquid assets and invest it somewhere. Quite frankly, I've been told the opposite. That's not enough. Keep that. You need that liquid. You need, you know, you need to be prepared for everything. So they will help you plan whether or not you should do something now, not necessarily convince you to do something now. So take advantage of that, because as time progresses, you can invest a little at a time. We all work best when it's out of sight, out of mind, don't we? Okay, if we never had it, we're never threatened, we're never challenged to spend it, okay? So find a way to create a plan for yourself, put that money away in any market, especially this shifting market, okay? The sky is not falling. We just need to all work together to keep it from doing so, and especially in your own business. Make sense? Okay, and again, as always, Adam's card is in your takeaway bag as well.
Yeah.
With the swag, and we appreciate you very much. Right, we're going to dig right in because we're going to be mindful of our time here, Mr. John Burrs. Okay, again, John is with Capital City Financial. He's an incredible loan originator and owns Capital City Financial, has incredible programs. But beyond that, he's also an accountant and patent preparer, and he knows, especially being in the industry, what's important to us in our businesses. So with that, Mr. John Burrs, thank you.
Also, housekeeping, I have,
Over the mic, you know.
I've donated 2 tickets to the Boston Bruins this Monday at 7 o'clock versus the St. Louis Blues. Now, the Boston Bruins are 9-1. They are ripping it up. They're a great team to watch. These tickets include a parking pass and also a buffet, because it's in the, they call the Nessens Sports Desk. So be sure to leave your business card in that bowl that Dean's holding onto, and please be here for the end of the seminar, webinars, and instructional meetings that are going on. So at the end,
I have a basket of cards. I'll come around. Raise your hand if you want to put your card in. Thank you, John. Thank you for offering that. We'll let you just continue.
I love the words. Okay, so I want to say first off, happy November and happy Thanksgiving. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm thankful that Dean gave me this opportunity, and I'm thankful that you're giving me your time. As a tax preparer and a mortgage broker, we kind of intertwine nicely so that I can help you minimize your taxable income, but also maximize your qualifying. It's almost a contradiction. And some of the people were talking about journeyman. So we're going to talk about mortgages, taxes, and the independent contractor. That's you. You are the workhorse of the United States economy. You are courageous, you are self-starter, you're highly motivated, and you are an independent contractor. The goal of this working lunch is to assist you in understanding mortgages, income taxes, your responsibility for reporting income and documenting your expenses as an independent contractor to, again, minimize your tax bill. And I'll show you different ideas, as well as maximizing your qualifying income so that when you want to buy that next house or buy the next car, you've got sufficient income to show. Okay, I hope the next few slides will assist you in that particular endeavor. This package is in your swag packages, lots of information for you to review it to reference, but more importantly, you can always call me, email me, I'll show you the problem. Okay, so mortgages, let's talk about mortgages. How as an independent contractor can you improve your chances of getting a mortgage? Okay, well, you establish yourself as an independent contractor. Generally speaking, if you're self-employed, you've got to be self-employed for at least 2 years in order to use that average income. But the good news is that if you've been self-employed for 5 years, you only need 1 year's tax return. So and obviously it's the last year's tax return, so hopefully that's the killer. So if you crushed it in a year and you've been in business for 5 years, you only need that 1 year's tax return. So that makes it easier for somebody who's self-employed to get a mortgage because they only have to worry about 1 year and not 2 years. Obviously, if you have 2 great years, well, that's great too. Okay. You want to maximize your qualifying income. So how do you do maximizing qualifying income? Well, there's these things called bonus depreciation, accelerated depreciation that you can actually add back to qualifying income. So for instance, if you were to purchase a computer and a cell phone and a printer, and it cost you $5,000. If you simply expense that, it reduces your taxable income, which is great, but it also reduces your qualifying income. But if you capitalize that asset, and you tell your accountant, or you let me be your accountant, but if you capitalize that asset, you can add back that section 179 depreciation expense for the bonus depreciation you took back. So $5,000 asset, although it reduces your taxable income by $5,000, doesn't reduce your qualifying income by $5,000. So adding back depreciation of section 179 of capitalized assets is a great way to reduce your taxable income. Another thing to think about, and we'll talk about this when we take your auto. If you buy a brand new car, you may want to take bonus depreciation. So you basically are able to write off the whole entire car in most cases, especially if it's an SUV over 6,000 pounds. You can write off the whole entire asset purchase. But for qualifying purposes, I can add it back to your income. So if you had a $60,000 SUV and you wrote that all up in 1 year, you can add it back for qualifying for your mortgage. So those are some of the things that we'll talk about when we get into the environment. Depreciation add back is one way in which to maximize your qualifying income. Right? You should optimize your debt to income ratio. Pay down all unnecessary debt. Pay it down to so it's at least under 10 months. And therefore, we don't have to include that in your qualifying ratio. So it helps to make sure that you have all your debt under control. So pay down that unnecessary. Don't close out those accounts. Any accounts that you have and you've had active for a while give you good credit points. So your scores will be high. Once you close out an account that you've had for a long time, you'll find that your credit scores will drop because all those points that you've accumulated, you lose. So never close out an account. Never close out, keep it there. You want to optimize your debt to income ratio. But again, making sure that you pay these accounts on time so there's no interest being accrued, penalties to maximize that. Maximize your credit score is another thing. One of the things I talk to my clients about is, let's say you've got a credit card and it's a $2,000 available credit, you've got $1,500 now, so you're about 75% utilized. That affects your score adversely. However, if you went to that, let's say it's Discover, call Discover, say, look, can you increase my credit line to $4,000, please? Generally speaking, they'll do it as long as you've got a good payment history. And now instead of being 75% utilized, you're like 30% or 40% utilized. That will improve your credit score. So it didn't cost you any money. You didn't have to do anything other than make a phone call. So increase your available credit line so that your utilization factors are low. That's an important thing. Do not close out any accounts. You should track your credit. Every year, you should go to this website here. It's www.annualcreditreport.com. And it's in the package, but you should get a free copy of your credit report just to make sure that what's on there is accurate. And if there's anything that's inaccurate, you can get it fixed. You can always call me if you need somebody to help you get something fixed with regard to credit. So it's important to track your credit on an annual basis. Again, keep track of your credit scores, to look at your trade lines, increase your available opportunities for borrowing. That won't hurt you. So you've got a $10,000 credit card with a $1,000 balance. It doesn't hurt you. That's a $10,000 line. Basically, it helps you that you won't have 10% utilization. That's utilization is really, really important. So try to keep your utilization down. How do you do that? Maybe increasing the lines of credit. When you buy a house, offer the largest down payment that you can, and therefore you're a little bit less risky. You'll also find that the interest rates are a little bit better with a larger down payment. Down payment of 20% or more requires no PMI, although we have programs with less than 20% down here, no PMI. But the larger the down payment, the easier it is for the loan to get approved. Have significant cash reserves. Make sure that all your 401ks, your simple IRAs, your SEPs, you bring all of that with you to the application, even though you won't spend it. The lenders want to see that you've got sufficient reserves such that if you fell on hard times, they don't have to worry about this loan not being paid. They know that you've got the reserves and your retirement accounts to make those payments. Last but not least, enlist a cosigner. So if you see that house of your dreams that you just want it, you know that next year you're going to have a bad year, but this year you start putting it up, enlist a cosigner to help you buy that property. And then later on, we can always refinance that person and take them off the mortgage. And again, if you have any mortgage questions, feel free to give me a call at Compass Financial. One of the benefits of working with me, just simply saying, I'll do your client's taxes for free the first year. So that might help you keep that buyer a little bit lower. When they buy a house, they don't know what to deduct. And if they go to H&R Block, they got to spend at least $200 bucks, 100 for the H and 100 for the R. They go to a CPA, it's at least 100 because it's 100 for the C, 100 for the P, and the A. They come to me the first year, it's free. So you can maybe retain your clients' buyers by saying, John, we're going to do taxes for free if you do the mortgage to him. Besides that, there's also no appraisal fee, there's no credit report fee that your client's gonna pay, we actually pay for those. There's a charge, but we usually don't send you credit, so just some of the benefits that might keep that buyer a little bit more loyal to you. Okay, so that's the mortgage aspect of it. I went through it quickly because I don't really into taxes. And I want you to make sure that you leave here without any questions on it. Feel free to address those taxes. You know, who's an independent contractor? You guys are. You're self-employed, you're either a member of a sole proprietorship, or a member of an LLC, or a member of a partnership, and you're self-employed. What are your responsibilities? You're responsible for filing an annual tax return, and more important than that, estimated quarterly tax payments. Why do you have to send an estimated quarterly tax payments? Our tax system is a pay-as-you-go system. So if you're a W-2 employee, you get a paycheck, they withhold the taxes, and they can send to the IRS on a bi-weekly basis, monthly basis, depending on your employer. Well, the IRS realizes that people who are self-employed don't send in money weekly, but on a quarterly basis, they expect you to calculate what your profit is and then send them a check. And that check will cover not only your federal income taxes, but more importantly, your social security taxes, your self-employment taxes. And you'll also send in an estimated quarterly payment to the state of Nevada. I can assist you with doing that. By doing that in a timely manner, you avoid paying penalties, you avoid paying interest on those late payments. If you didn't and you have a penalty, call me, because I can file what they call a one-time penalty abatement program. The IRS gives you a one-time pass. If you basically didn't pay your taxes and there's a penalty for not paying in time manner, you can just basically say, I'm sorry, it's the first time for me. I've never done it before. I'm always a good taxpayer, and they'll waive the penalty. So it's one of the things that you have to do. But if you're a tax return, I want you to give me a call. Sure.
In 2019, I bought a used Prius,
Yes.
and I know it's not, I bought it used, not new. Are there, other than the mileage deduction, are there any other deductions?
Okay, good.
Or,
John, if you would repeat that.
Yeah. So we bought a used car back in 2019, looking to know what other deductions are there. There's lots of deductions, and we're going to go through that for you. We'll go through auto deductions, and there's two different ways in which to take your auto expenses. We'll talk about home offices and the different ways to take that as well. So it's a really, really important question, and it's probably one of the biggest deductions that person in real estate gets. So you want to keep good track of those. Okay, so make your estimated tax payment. I'll help you with those, but then you quarterly.
Do you have to make quarterly payments?
So it's a pay as you go. So if you're making money, you have to make a payment as long as there's a profit. If you're losing money, you don't have to pay taxes. But if you're making money, yes, you have to pay taxes. If you don't, you can be penalized for underpayment of taxes. And on top of that, they charge you interest for underpayment of taxes.
So any quarter that you have a profit, you need to be paying a quarterly payment.
That's right. So it might be a situation, so January, February, March, you went on vacation because it was too cold. You don't have to make an estimated payment first quarter. You can wait until the June 15th payment is due and then make an estimated payment. And let's say you make no payment because you stayed there because it was so nice and you come back until September. Well, then you can make a September 15th payment. You basically make a payment for the income that you earned in that particular quarter. That's a good question. Okay, so as far as the most important thing, the hardest thing for all of us to do is record keeping. So there's lots of ways to do it. I'm going to suggest that first off, you have a separate business checking account. Okay, try to get a low cost checking account. Also get a separate business credit card. That'll help you significantly in reducing the amount of documentation you have to go through at the end of the year. I also suggest that you set up, and there's a spreadsheet in here, I'll show it to you later on, that you set up on a monthly basis. When you reconcile your checkbook, at that same time, do a monthly P&L. Put all your expenses in by category in an Excel spreadsheet. All right, all your income will come to you from your employer, again, a 1099 NEC. So you have to worry about tracking that, but you should make sure that they're not over reporting when you're reporting income. But on a monthly basis, you should do a reconciliation and write down your expenses. And then February comes along, and then March, and the thing will add itself up. So you'll know by the end of the quarter, okay, here's my profit, we can make my estimated payment. Often people don't do it. They wait till the end of the year to do their accounting. And guess what they do? They forget things. Oh, you remember right now what you paid in January for certain things? No. But at the end of January, you remember exactly what you paid. It's right there, it's fresh in your mind. So record on a monthly basis your expenses in Excel spreadsheet. And let the Excel spreadsheet do the totals for you at the end of the year. Let the Excel spreadsheet do the totals for you on a quarterly basis.
Can you, I know you said it's in the packet, but can you email, can we have that?
Absolutely, yes. Yep. Absolutely, I will. That's a good question. Yes, I will email these packages to you besides it being in the swag package. And I'll help you set up those Excel spreadsheets for you. They're simple and you can be as creative as possible. It's just to help you. The record keeping is paramount. You want to reduce your taxable income because your income is recorded. You ain't gonna hide that. but it's the expenses that you sometimes lose track of because we don't do a good job. You know, we wait till the end of the year, we forget things. We forget out-of-pocket cash expenditure. But during that month, we say, yeah, I set this on cash. I found that receipt now, and we put in this in the ledger. So paramount is keeping good records, okay? Okay, reporting income, we talked about that. Your employee's gonna help you with that. Okay, reporting expenses, okay, well, what's deductible, John? Okay, my personal opinion is everything's deductible, but no. The honest answer to that is those costs that are necessary and ordinary in your business are deductible. Necessary and ordinary are deductible. If you buy a fishing pole, that's not really an expense that you can deduct unless you are showing the person has a dock on their house that they can fish there. And you can stage and prop, okay? But these are
Fishing for prospects every day.
the fishing cost for prospects is, the fishing rod isn't, but the fishing for, yes. So it's gotta be necessary and ordinary. And I say to you, everything you do is necessary and ordinary. So if you're talking to somebody on the telephone, your phone expense. You're taking somebody out for lunch, the meal expense. And by the way, you can still take 100% of your meals as a deduction if you're entertaining clients and talking business. So make sure you keep track of that. And that's why a separate business credit card is important. And then you log that on your spreadsheet on a monthly basis. But it's got to be necessary and ordinary. And everything, in my opinion, again, uniforms we don't have as realtors, but like if you bought foul weather gear, like boots to walk through the land listing you just took, or a big raincoat, those things there, yes, they're ordinary and customary. You know, suits, dry cleaning, not because you can wear a suit to any event. Dry cleaning, you can use those anything. But if you had a uniform, like if you had a home smart shirt, yes. If you bought a home smart shirt, yes, because it's not ordinary and customary. It's not, you wouldn't wear that ordinarily outside to an engagement or something along those lines. So it's marketing expense. Uniform, there's another list of things that are deductible if you're advertising, whether it be on social media, whether it be in print, whether it be radio, whether it be television, all your advertising expenses, signs, all of those things are deductible. Again, you have to be somewhat creative. The chances of you being audited are 0 to very small. The only way you guys are being audited is if A, you don't report the income that's on the 1099 that your boss gives you, or B, you take exorbitant deductions for things that are outside the norm for your industry. Like you say, okay, I traveled 300,000 miles from real estate. You're going to get audited for that because it's a flag. The computer does that. It's all artificial intelligence that picks it up. But the probability of you being audited is very, very slim unless you basically violate a threshold or don't report the income that's unattached. But your car and truck expenses, we're going to go through that in a second. Commissions and fees, you pay for somebody to sit in an open house for you, attend a closing, do a home inspection for you. Those commissions and fees that you pay to that person, those are deductible for you. Depreciation, we talked about that, we'll talk about more in detail. Any equipment purchases, whether it be a cell phone, computer, printer, tables for your home office, chairs for your home office, anything that you buy for the listings that you have, any staging materials that you purchase, all of those things. Your insurance, health, dental, etc. All of those are deductible. They will reduce your taxable income, but they're not going to reduce your qualifying income. So when you're talking about the insurance deduction you get a nice reduction in your taxable income, but it doesn't reduce your qualifying income. So another thing for us to know, so it can help us qualify for your home. Interest paid, if you have that corporate credit card, the interest that you pay on that, if you carry a balance, that's deductible. If you have a car and you have a car loan, the interest, the business portion of that interest is deductible as well. The taxes on that car, the insurance on that car, I'm going to go through now. The insurance on that car, the taxes on that car, the car washes, the maintenance of the cars, all that stuff is like oil changes, repairs, tires, air fresheners, whatever you do for your car, your home away from home, is deductible, or the portion that's considered business aspect. And we'll go through that just for detail. On home office deductions, we'll cover that in a separate slide. Rent and lease payments. If you're leasing a car, that's deductible. Renting, staging furniture for a listing that you have, that's deductible. If you rent a separate storage area for your business, that's deductible as well for equipment and such. Repairs and maintenance, those are deductible. Office supplies, your travel expenses, you go to seminars, conferences, all those expenses are deductible. Again, the meal, 100%. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Leasing a car, because I've always wondered this.
Mhm.
You could write off a
Depends.
lease.
Depends.
Depends, right? Yeah, thanks, Adam. Started a trend, yeah. So, can you write off a loan payment for a car that you financed
like you can for a lease or at all.
That's, so the interest payments, the interest you pay on that car loan is deductible, okay, as is the lease payment. Now, it depends on what our eventual goal is, which approach we'll take. You might take a standard mileage method for our auto expenses, or we might take the actual cost method. I'll go through that in more detail, but the interest on that car loan is deductible. The principal that you pay, okay, you've actually deducted that through when you purchase the property, you know, that car, you capitalize it, and then you depreciate it and wrote it off. But let's say you bought a 6,001 pound SUV, and it cost you 60 grand. We're gonna take a deduction, so let's say it's 100% business, we're gonna take a $60,000 reduction in your income. That's the principal portion. And on top of that, you can then write off the interest expenses on top of that $60,000. Now, when we go to qualify you for the mortgage, I get to add that $60,000 back for income purposes. So if you everything went to zero because of that car purchase or a vehicle purchase, I can now add it back. So, okay, you made 60 grand. Well, the tax case, there made nothing, John. Yeah, but I added back depreciation. Now I'm allowed to qualify you based on that $60,000 that we took for bonus depreciation.
What are the payments?
Please, go ahead.
Kind of your question, the monthly payments that you're making on the car that you're not leasing, you're financing, is that alright?
The interest portion, absolutely. So you're
Not the
gonna,
actual payment.
so that's correct. The payment's not, the interest is, but you're capturing everything because you're taking the interest here. But the principal portion that you're not getting on a monthly basis, you accomplish by depreciating that vehicle up front. So you're able to take a separate deduction for.
What you didn't know about how waiting for a vehicle, just slightly under that amount, we can't depreciate that entire thing.
No, but you still have depreciation, but you couldn't do 100%. That's correct. So for instance, in 2022, I think with bonus depreciation on an automobile that's under 6,000 pounds, it's $19,200 the first year. And then you can depreciate it even more so over the next 4 years. So you get a $19,000 write-off, plus you get the car interest that you pay. And then when I do your mortgage application, I'm going to add $19,000 back to your income.
Just so I understand, so right now you're talking about when I purchase a car, but if I leased a car,
Okay.
that entire payment is, or it's not?
So the lease is 100% deductible as long as the car is used 100% for the business. So if there's an 80% business use, we get 80% of the lease payment. And 80% of the insurance, and 80% of the taxes, and 80% of the fuel, and 80% of the car washes. Wash your car because it's a nice deduction for you. Okay? Utilities, we talked about utilities, cell phone, if you have a separate home line, office, internet access.
Sorry, back to the car. Yeah, the car, right? So the car, we lease the car, but does the car need to be leased to the business name? Okay,
So the IRS, as long as you're within reason, what do I want to say this there? So if you're in an LLC, the technical answer is the car should be in the LLC's name. Okay, that's the technical answer. But if it's not, if it's in your name personally, because the car dealership wouldn't lend to the LLC, you're still going to get that write-off. Let me say it like that.
okay.
What about if it's leased to your husband? So
What's
like
that?
if the car was leased to my husband, but I'm the one using it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if your husband leased the vehicle, but you're using the vehicle, can I write off those lease payments? Yes, I can, because you have a joint checking account probably. and You're living in the same household. Yes, you'll be able to write those off. That's correct. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I live in Massachusetts. Does this apply just to Rhode Island?
No, these are.
I mean,
federal-
just everything you're talking in general.
That's right.
Yes,
Is it all Rhode Island?
because you live in Massachusetts, the presentation that you see today is a federal presentation. So it's for every state in the union. So all these deductions we're talking about are applicable to every state in the union, including Massachusetts.
Discriminating against us.
People might, if you're a Rhode Island resident, if you're a Rhode Island resident, it flows through, your income flows through to your Rhode Island tax return, and you pay taxes only on the profit that you show on your business. If you're in Massachusetts, the same thing holds true. You pay taxes only on the amount of the profit that flows through from your business. Yes, sir.
If I've taken the mileage deduction in previous years and I want to take the actual deduction, are you stuck taking that actual deduction for a few years or how does that work?
Really, really, really good question. So once you make a decision, you're supposed to stay with that decision, okay? So for instance, if you bought the car and you went actual cost initially and you took all that depreciation, you can't then go and say, I'm gonna go the standard, okay? But if you do start with the standard deduction, you can then convert it to actual cost.
Okay.
So it's really tricky, but if you started with the actual cost, then you have to take that throughout the life. If you started with the standard, you can then flip over to the actual cost. And we'll go through that in more detail later on. Yeah. Other expenses that you can deduct, and you all know this, is what a realtor do is your MLS fees, continuing education, marketing expenses, your smoke detector inspections, any clean outs that you pay for, postage and mailings, client appreciation programs that you might conduct, staging expenses, all of those things.
I jumped in.
Yes.
So smoke detector inspection, double-edged sword.
Mhm.
So an agent may pay for a smoke detector inspection on behalf of their client. They may be reimbursed for it later. So can you magically pretend you weren't reimbursed for it later and take advantage of the write-off? And we all do it, right? Charcoal gray versus elephant gray. This is elephant gray. So you know, I mean, how does that work?
Okay, so if,
That's right. Will you be audited?
so it all depends if when you get your 1099 NEC, if your employer included that reimbursement in your income, then obviously it's an easy deduction. If they didn't, the probability of you being audited is slim to none. And if that $25 smoke detector inspection got in there and you actually got reimbursed for it, nobody's going to lose any sleep over it. And the IRS is not looking for that. They're looking for big fish because it costs them thousands of dollars to conduct an audit. So they only do audits if they think they can get twice or three times the $1,000 it costs them to do an audit. So the answer to the question is, if it's.
I will sleep so much better tonight.
You know, I mean, I get it, right? I mean, I see how it happens and, you know, just repairs, reimbursement, you know, it all factors in and, you know, it's easier to show that I paid for something than it is to show that I was reimbursed for something. So just playing it real. I want to make sure that, you know, I mean, if we're doing tax policing right now, I want to make sure that people understand. Now, by the way, if I may, John, I'm not saying you're telling us not to claim the reimbursement. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. However, it's a real thing in our business and that's why I wanted to ask.
And I'm saying that theoretically, technically, you're supposed to do the right thing. If you made a mistake and you included that in your expenses and you forgot you got reimbursed for it.
Yeah,
it's-
year after year after year.
So if you think about it, the tax brackets, the $50 tax brackets, right? $50 tax brackets. So if you increase your deduction by $25, you didn't move the tax bracket, so the IRS is not going to be looking for that. You know, it's not going to. Yes, sir.
I've heard that audits are completely random, is that true?
Audits are completely random.
Rather than like, oh, these are red flags, they're totally random.
So as a result of COVID, as a result of the understaffing of the IRS, most audits are derived, and not actually in-person audits, but they're derived by a computer algorithm. All right, so yes, you could randomly be picked, but it would have to randomly pick you for something. So there had to be something like hey, your 1099 NEC said you made 100 grand and you reported 99,000 because you gave Dean $1,000 back because he overpaid you, but you didn't report the 100, you're going to get picked on that for that. Or you had $200,000 in miles. You're going to, there's a realtor that I didn't do his taxes then, but I fixed the problem. But he took a total because he had two other businesses. He took a total of 200,000 miles in 1 year on a car. And I said, there's no way you drive with 200,000 miles in a year. He had each of the cars had like 70,000, 70,000, 70,000. So can you randomly be audited? Yes, you are, but more than likely it's done by a computer, you know, and you'll get triggered because of something that's inconsistent with the industry. One thing that's important to know is gifts. If you give a gift to a client of $25, no problem. That's no problem with that. If you would give a gift more than $25, the IRS says you're allowed to take a deduction of only $25. So my clients, I had $3,000 in gifts. I don't ask the question. I just assume that they had. Well, I take the 3,000 divided by 25. That's okay. You must have 70 clients. Okay, good. That's what you did. But just know that you're only allowed $25 per person per gift. And it's not husband and wife 50, it's the husband and wife 25. You know, so just so you know what the code is. So if you don't want to give gifts to your clients, you can explain, well, I had to limit it to 25 because my account, that's all I can do.
So I didn't want to insult you with giving you $25.
But my account said that's all I can deduct.
Would a little workaround to that be having your logo and your name on it and run it off as advertising?
Mark, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
marketing gift, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Cut code nine.
It's,
Yeah.
it's about marketing, so that's really now a marketing and gift expense, yes, absolutely. So it's about being creative, so if it's ordinary and customary, it's deductible, and that is. Yes.
My current account, I say current, it's all going to you. When I have like a real estate coach, or even when I pay my photographer, if it is over like a certain amount, like 900 a year, she says that I have to 1099.
Okay, good question.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, okay, so when you pay somebody over $600, you are supposed to, by law, give that person a 1099. So if you gave somebody $601 for sitting in an open house, you're supposed to give them a 1099. If you pay for a photographer over $900 for an event, you're supposed to give them a 1099. Now, there's a box that asks on the tax return, did you pay any, were you responsible for issuing any 1099s, yes or no? You check off yes or no. And then, did you issue 1099s, yes or no? So you have to answer those two questions. And if you didn't, okay, the IRS could come back and say, look, you know what? We're going to disallow that deduction unless you cut a 1099. You don't go to jail, you don't pass go, don't click anywhere else. You just basically, they can disallow that deduction. So if you're supposed to issue a 1099 and you don't, they can disallow it.
So full disclosure, the only thing I don't track is my mileage. What would be the worst case scenario if I'm deducting, let's say, 12,000 miles in a year, and the IRS says, let me see this proof, will I just not be able to take that deduction, or what's worst case scenario?
Okay, so a great question, by the way, and I have a whole segment on actual versus standard. So with regard to documentation around mileage, if you don't keep good documentation, the IRS can disallow it all. Now, what is good documentation? Well, you have to have contemporaneous documentation. What I mean by that is at the beginning of every year or the end of every year, go get an oil change with your local oil guy. And that oil guy or woman will write down what the mileage was on your car. And that'll be like, for instance, if you did January this year, that'll be the beginning of the miles for January. At the end of the year, do another one. So now we have the beginning and ending points. So we know the total miles. That's key. The IRS wants to see contemporaneous documentation, not from you, but from an oil change or repairs or a dealership. But you get the beginning and the ending miles. Then what you're supposed to create, if you do get audited, your probability, if you only took 12,000 miles, is not likely. But what you do now is you're supposed to keep a log of your business travel. How can you do that? Well, if you're really disciplined, you buy something like Mile IQ, and you basically every time you get in the car, you do the magic, and it'll keep track of the miles for you on a monthly basis and give you the total. So what will happen is that Mile IQ will give me the total miles, and then I'll take that total miles and I'll multiply it by the appropriate factor. So for instance, this year here, in 2022, the first 6 months of the year, you get 58.5 cents per mile as a deduction. The second half of the year, you get 62.5 cents a mile for the deduction. So let's just average it, say it's 60 cents a mile. So if you did 10,000 miles with 12, I can do that because I can do that math. So if I took 12,000 miles, right, and I got 60 cents a mile, that's a $7,200 tax deduction. So if you have the documentation to support it, you don't lose that. If you don't have it, they can take it away. Now, on top of that, so we talked about
Just that, they won't take other deductions away.
well, they could, once you open the tax return, then they can go after every single line up. You don't want to open up the tax return. I'm going to give you an example. So we talked about that car, you're getting 60 cents on average. Well, within that 60 cents is a depreciation component, and it's about 26 cents a mile. So I'm going to lazy now. So you did 10,000 miles with travel. You get to add back $2,600 of that deduction for the depreciation component of the mileage. So again, it helps you to increase your qualifying income. At the same time, we've decreased our taxable income, but we've increased our qualifying income because we can add back the depreciation component of the mileage. So that's one of the things that you'll want to do. And any asset that you place in service, you'll add back. So now let's talk about that. You're not sophisticated enough to use Mile IQ. So what you do is, okay, you write down every listing you have, and then on a monthly basis, when you're doing the reconciliation, how many times did I go visit that listing and how many miles was that listing from my house? And then I go to a showing, I go to the listing appointment, went to the closing, and each property you'll have that so that later on, if you were to be audited, you'd sit with me, we'd put together a log. And then we show that to the IRS. It's okay, here's the receipt for the beginning mileage, here's the receipt for the ending, here's my total, and here's my mileage log. And that's what I did for this gentleman. I helped him put together a log for for the car. He got through, he got by, you know, because he had a friend who worked at a dealership who gave him the beginning and ending miles. And he had 3 businesses split over, you know, but we had the documentation. They couldn't refute the documentation.
What about, claiming mileage for going to a meeting like this? Is that, it's working?
Let's see, all-
So your mileage, if it's bit, so
Repeat.
So to repeat the question, the mileage to drive to an office meeting or to any kind of business meeting, is that deductible? Yes, it is. Okay, you're gonna be able to write down, so you want to keep good track of all your miles.
So our attendance is going up.
Yeah.
We're gonna have more people at meetings.
It's important. So yes.
How far back can they go?
Okay, good. Okay, good. So what is the time? So asking for a friend, what is the time period that the IRS can look back? Okay, if there's fraud, there's no statute of limitations. They can go after you forever. If you don't file a tax return, there is no statute of limitations. But if you file a tax return, it's 3 years. They can normally look back 3 years. Now, right now, they're probably auditing the 2018 tax returns, to be honest with you, because the IRS is backlogged because of COVID, nobody went to work. So they're probably looking at that. And again, most of this stuff is done with a computer. You'll get a computer notice to say, okay, we have a discrepancy, please explain, you know, and then my client will call me up and say, okay, did you get a 1099 for this? Yeah, but I didn't think it was taxable. I go, you got a 1099. I go, yeah. She goes, well, how come you didn't give it to me? Well, I didn't think it was taxable. I go, it's not your job to think if it's taxable. It's my job. Let me see it. And it wasn't, because it was a Roth distribution. She was 66 years old, but the IRS doesn't know that. So I had to then basically take the 1099 and write a letter saying, this is a Roth distribution. She had the Roth for more than 5 years. It's fully tax exempt. But it's one of those things. You might think you know, and you are right, but you got to give it to me so I can put it on the tax, because it goes on a line, and then the next line says taxable amount 0. So total distribution, taxable distribution 0. That's why you want to give it to the account or to me.
I have a question from the Zoom.
Yes.
Rebecca's asking, can a gift be turned into a donation? How do donations work?
Okay, good. Can a gift be turned into a donation? So charitable contributions, if that's what you're referring to, yes, any business donation that you make to certain charities, like this, like I do the Pan Mass Challenge, you know, I love that for cancer research. And the donation that I make, I write up on my own tax return. So donations that you make to various charities are deductible. And I would, other than church, because church is a personal thing, but business donations that you make, you're trying to promote yourself, trying to promote your business, are deductible. And you'll want to try to maximize the deductions for charities on your business return, because not only do you reduce your taxable income, you reduce your Social Security tax liability. So that deduction on your business return serves 2 purposes, serves 3: charity, number 1, number 2, reducing your personal income tax, and number 3, reducing your Social Security taxes. So yes. Yeah,
What's
that's
the
right.
max?
Pardon?
What's the max?
What's the max? So, I mean, it's got to be reasonable. Okay, the IRS said if you're going to go on Schedule A, take personal deductions. Because of COVID, you can actually write off 100% of your adjusted gross income. Right now, it's back to 50%. So your charitable contributions can go to 50% of what your adjusted gross income. Now, if you're full retirement age of 72 and you take a distribution from your required minimum distribution from your retirement account, you can contribute that directly to a charity, and it doesn't show up on your tax return at all, and therefore it doesn't screw up the Social Security tax liability. So if you do a direct donation from a 401k or an IRA after 72 to a charity up to $100,000, you can do that. And that doesn't, it's not limited. So if you only have $10,000 of income, you could actually do a $100,000 charitable account. You can't take the deduction because you'd have to show that income, but you're still making that contribution. Okay, yes.
How about fundraisers, like paying for fundraisers?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a gray area. So buying fundraising tickets and stuff like that it's a gray area, because it's really not a charitable donation, because it's not a registered 501c. However, if you're saying I'm doing it for marketing purposes, I'm participating in it for marketing purposes, I would take that as a deduction. Again, if it's relatively small dollar amount, the IRS is not going to go after you for that. But if it's like a $15,000 worth of fundraising cost, you know, we might want to peel that back and say, okay, let's be practical, you know.
Yeah.
But so that's an important thing to think about as well. It's just, you know, using some common sense, as long as it's not excessive. I'll give you an example. For instance, the IRS came back and said, oh, by the way, if you just have one cell phone, you can't write that off. You have to have a separate business cell phone in order to take the deduction. That's the IRS code. However, when I said, like clients say, okay, we're gonna take 75, no more than 80% of your cell phone, even though you don't have a separate one, that's what we're gonna claim as a deduction. And we'll show the IRS common sense that 20% of the cell phones, take husband calls from my husbands or my spouses or my children, but we're only gonna take a portion of that. Okay, so that's the technical answer. You're supposed to have a separate cell phone to use the business.
But separate cell phone, or can we just show two numbers?
Okay, so you're right, separate line, I should have said, thank you. So do you need two actual phones? No, you don't need two phones, but you need two lines, yes, because really it's the line that you're deducting.
So like everybody who is using Lions Dance, when you have the ability to text your clients, they give you a number. A lot of those marketing companies, you get a second number.
So again, I'm going to take those deductions, we say, I'll give you 75 to 80%, within reason, so that you get that deduction you're entitled to, because it is a business expense. Okay, let's talk about car and truck expense. I think we talked about it a little bit before. There's two techniques. There's a standard mileage, which is kind of simple, and then there is the actual cost method. So the standard mileage, in both cases, by the way, we have to get an ending miles and a beginning miles, so we know the total. And then we have to keep a log of what we have. And again, I would do it on a monthly basis, how many listens you had, how many trips you went there, and you can guesstimate the mileage. And we add them up, we're gonna take 60 cents a mile. That's what we're gonna do on the standard. Now, when would you do that? Let's say you had an old car, you just got in the business, the car's been 10 years old, there's not a lot of asset there to depreciate. Take the standard, because we'll be able to add back that depreciation element to your miles and help you qualify for new car, a new house, or a new car. So actual method is ideal when somebody buys a brand new car, okay? They probably have a big expense. So now we can depreciate that, we can capitalize that. We can write off the car interest if applicable. We can write off the taxes, the insurances, all of that stuff. All of that stuff is applicable. Now, how do they calculate that? You say, okay, I had 50% of my miles for business and 50% were personal. 50% of your car purchase is going to be deductible, 50% of the interest, 50% of the fuel, 50% of the taxes, 50% of the car cleaning, 50% of the maintenance, all of that. Does that make sense? I know I'm going fast because I want to make sure we stay within the time limits. Does that make sense about the car? Okay. Yeah, it's one of the biggest deductions I see on my clients' tax returns.
If you do the standard, can you write off car washes?
Yeah, no.
Standard.
No.
You cannot.
But you can write off your property taxes. So if you have property taxes, okay, on the car, you can write those off. Parking fees, you can write those off as well, okay? Tolls, you can write those off, but the car washes no, because it's specific to the car. You're right.
Speeding tickets?
So no, speeding tickets, unfortunately, are not tax deductible. Okay, let's go right to home office deduction. Home office. You're allowed what they call the safe harbor method. You can take the square footage of that room that you use specifically for your conducting of business, and you can take $5 per square foot. So it'd be up to 300 feet. So if you got a 300-foot room or it's in your basement, you can take a $1,500 tax deduction and you don't need any paperwork. So that's the nice thing about the safe harbor. On top of that, you can still take the mortgage interest, real estate taxes on your Schedule N, okay? Now, if you want to take the actual method, then what you have to do is take the square footage of that room as a percent of the square footage of the house. And then you take your mortgage interest, real estate taxes, utilities, and you write that off that way there. The safe harbor is much easier. You don't have to worry about the IRS asking you for electric bills and water bills and stuff like that, okay? I'm going to try to go fast. We talked about actual count, we talked about the standard house, home office, we talked about that. And let's get through here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pretty much say I'm done with this so that I can let you guys ask questions. But the package you get will have attachments of this profit and loss. It'll list all the kinds of expenses that you can deduct. Okay. There's another page I want to show you here. This is the one that you should set an Excel spreadsheet to look like this. And then just write on in January, February, March, and just fill it out just like this. Use this format. And when you go to do your taxes, you'll find that it'll be a breeze for your accountant. And more importantly, it'll be a breeze for you. So those spreadsheets are in there for you to use. I can send them to you electronically as well. It talks about some of the car breaks that you're going to get this year. If you buy an SUV and it's 100% business use, you can write off the whole cost of that SUV. I've got contractors who buy a truck right in December. First, I got a big profit. What do? I go, you need a new truck, don't you? Yeah, we'll buy a truck. And it'll take a $60,000 write-off and buy a brand new truck. Contractors like new trucks. They really do. So it's not a hard sell. So tax starts in 2022. It talks about IRAs. So we're talking about qualifying income. You basically contribute to your SEP as best you can, pay your health insurance, all these things reduce your taxable income, but don't affect your qualifying income as well. So some tax fact sheets in here. And I'm not gonna step on that gentleman's toes, but it talks about corporations, S corps, C corps, and which approach you should take. I am gonna leave you alone. Again, I'll do your client's taxes for free. That should keep that buyer more loyal to you. There's no appraisal fee, no credit report fee, and I thank you very much for your time.
Ton of information. Holy cow.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, all of you are wondering, am I gonna get audited? No, only Matt. Because he asked too many questions. He's Colette's friend. She was asking for him. With that, I'm gonna ask Tony Sinersha to come on down. Tony, thank you again very much. Sir, take it away.
I have no idea how to follow these guys. They did an outstanding job.
Now, if I may, before you begin, Tony has the presentation. And we're gonna run a little bit over for lunch. Lunch is arriving, so know that we do have food, but we don't want to lose this content. I'm psyched about the content we have here. Can we agree with that so far? Okay, so we'll run a little bit behind on lunch with our apologies, but there's still plenty of time to get all the content. So I don't want you feeling you have to end at 12. That's why I'm saying.
It was such a great job. What I did was I bought the federal corporate book. I put it in everyone's.
The lead exam on Friday, so I'm pretty much done.
Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna bounce a lot of what John already said, but I'm gonna utilize it as well, because some of the things I'm gonna cover, and I have questions for all of you, are geared towards forming your own identity / independent company / corporation / LLC, and how some of the things have actually developed over the years. But for all of you here, how many of you do have an LLC or an independent company that you've already set up? Tell me a little bit why you did it.
So I actually got into being a real estate agent because I started a real estate investment first. So I have that, and then everything that I have under that, just kind of, my accountant had me put everything under that EIN. So all my commissions and everything go under my portfolio company.
Fantastic. In the back, someone else over here though.
Yeah, I just thought it was easier to separate business from personal. So.
That's one of the biggest items.
Yeah.
Right? Who else had their hand up?
And
You got a lot of questions, so I was waiting for you.
I did it because I found out, and you will correct me because I'm gonna say it wrong, that it cost me $7,500 last year for not having it.
What's up?
Something to do with tax returns. If you're a sole proprietor and you don't have LLC, then you owe the state $7,500.
I'll jump in, John. So let's just be clear, I'm not a tax attorney.
Okay,
I do a lot of estate planning, which I will sit with that down one of these days. But I don't do tax returns. I'm not a tax attorney. I do a ton of corporate work, so I want John actually, we had a discussion prior to coming here, so I'm gonna actually have John answer some of these questions as we move forward.
Oftentimes people think an LLC is in their best interest because an LLC's income flows through to your personal return. But with an LLC subchapter S corporation, you don't have to pay self-employment taxes on those particular earnings. That's a misnomer because the IRS right now is looking at, with all those new agents, they're saying, hey, people are using an LLC to avoid paying taxes on self-employment are going to get audited. If you're going to form an LLC, you should actually take a W-2 for some of your income to show good faith. And then the rest of the profit, you can let that flow through so that you can avoid self-employment taxes. So your accountant probably said, oh, if we file as an LLC, you won't have to pay any self-employment taxes, and I'll save you $7,500. But guess what? You just robbed yourself of Social Security benefits when you go to retire. And eventually the IRS is going to send you a letter saying, hey, you filed for 5 years in a row. You haven't paid any self-employment taxes. You didn't pay yourself a commensurate salary. This is what we've computed. You owe us. So an LLC will allow you to avoid Social Security taxes, but it's a misnomer. You should actually pay those Social Security taxes. Did that help answer the question? Is that why you owe money? Yeah, you owe money. That's a mistake. So anyone that has an LLC and is not paying Social Security taxes, you need to correct that. Take a W-2, take a modular salary, whether it's $30,000, let the profits fall through so you can avoid some Social Security tax. but therefore you can show good faith to the IRS that you weren't trying to belligerently avoid paying self-employment taxes.
Does that salary need to be through a payroll company or just an automatic, a regular deduction from your business?
So you can do your own payroll, like to Intuit, QuickBooks, you can do your own, you can do it through a payroll company, but take a salary and then send in the taxes on a, monthly basis for your federal withholdings, your state withholdings, your social security tax.
Right.
But do take a salary to avoid that slam later on. There was a CPA firm that basically took W-2s of $20,000 a year, and they made $200,000 in salary. The IRS came back and said, look, a CPA doesn't make 20 grand. You're going to change your salary to 180, and we'll let you take that flow through and not pay self-employment taxes, but you are not going to avoid paying taxes on $180,000. That's what we do.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
You see why I had them.
That's it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else here that actually set one up? So do you guys know the difference between corporations and limited liability companies and why they're actually set up the way they are? No. Okay.
Obviously not.
So we're gonna read that for the next 3 days. No. So really corporations are a creature of statute. LLCs were created a number of years ago to be kind of a hybrid. And that hybrid was created so that we eliminate having corporate directors, corporate meetings. LLCs can be created as a single member, a multi-member, and they're as simple as creating with the Secretary of State and an operating agreement and a few other little items that go with it. They're actually really cool because they do work very similar to corporations, but have a tremendous amount of flexibility. In the handout, it does go out to, I've explained how some of the hybrid works. It can be a one-member LLC. It can be a multi-member LLC. If you have, say, a team of realtors, 1, 2, 3, that all work under that one LLC, certainly your license will still stay here with HomeSmart, but all of you can actually work under that one LLC collectively together, okay? Corporations, definitely, it's a legal entity created by individual stockholders and shareholders. That's the big difference. You're gonna have directors, and on top of that, you're gonna have meetings where, the LLCs are very simple. You probably have a one-member LLC. Do you actually have an operating agreement?
Yeah.
You do, fantastic. So that's great to have. So getting on the subject of operating agreements, not that I want to get away from this, but if you are a single member, get an operating agreement. It distinguishes you from actually your self-identity to the LLC identity, okay? And also, if you don't have one, I deal with a lot of individuals with LLCs without an operating agreement. They're single members. Very difficult sometimes because you have to make judgment calls on single member LLCs that you otherwise wouldn't make if there was an operating agreement that's self-explanatory as to what rights they have and how that LLC is being operated. When I draft operating LLCs, I have numerous different versions, but some of mine are extremely complex for larger corporations. I'm sorry, shouldn't mix those terms, larger LLCs versus corporations. So with that, corporations are allowed to enter into contracts, be sued, own assets, remit federal and state taxes, borrow money from financial institutions. Can LLCs do the same thing? Yes, they really can. Again, set up as a hybrid, but they can do the exact same thing. Okay. By transition, comparison in terms of an entity. So in formation, an LLC is just articles of organization, but the corporation is articles of incorporation. Owners with liability are members, right? In a corporation, it's directors. Managers of business affairs are managers and the members. In a corporation, it's directors. Ownership interest in an LLC is the membership interest. You're the only member, the interest is yours. You're the only member, the interest is yours. Are you the only member? The interest is yours. In a corporation, it's stock. So you own stock in a corporation. There are folks out there that have a corporation and the stock is owned by one individual, but he also has a board of directors that guides what he does, where in an LLC, one's not required. In an LLC, you have an operating agreement. In a corporation, you have bylaws and shareholder agreements. Those shareholder agreements can be pretty intense based on the amount of investment that they make. Okay. And one thing in the LLCs, your liability is only limited to what you've invested in that limited liability company. Does that make sense? So let's say you invested $1,000 in Florida. If it's written correctly in the operating agreement, you're only limited to that $1,000 in the event something occurs. But we'll talk about that because John brought something up with insurance that I think we should cover. Okay. The advantages, I'll have John come up in a little bit, but tax flexibility, in my opinion, with an LLC allows you to take an S corp election with the IRS, which can save you money on self-employment tax. You want to comment on that?
Again, don't abuse that. Take a salary, you measure what you're earning on, and let the profits on top of that flow through, that you do avoid paying some of that stuff. Don't abuse that.
And one of the things that I always point out with that is, you know, the LLC with an S corp election. Will likely give you a lower risk of being audited. It's not zero, nothing zero, but it's much lower, all right? And honestly, he did a great job with this, but the one thing I love about the LLCs is the business of personal finance. A huge mistake most real estate agents make is combine, you know, what you do for business and what you do for personal. I see it all the time. It's not a good thing. Keep it separate. Your personal should be separate from the LLC expenses that you do. All right, that's how you stay out of trouble. Because honestly, I've been on the other side, and if I have to come after any of you to pierce that corporate veil, you so much as slip up anywhere, when I actually through in discovery, get your tax returns, I'm coming for you. And I'll pierce that veil and come after your personal assets. That's what every lawyer is trained to do. So keep it separate. Follow his advice.
So within, you know, people think, oh, I got an S corporation. Sorry. People think with an S corporation that they're protected from everything. You're not. Let's talk about the Dadarian brothers. They own this club called Station.
Oh, my God.
They went to the judge, we're an LLC, we're protected. They go, judge goes, no, you're not. You're negligent and we're suing you personally. So that LLC doesn't protect you. What you want to protect yourself with is good insurance. Get yourself a good E&O policy, which I'm sure they offer here. Get yourself a general liability policy and an umbrella policy. Get the insurances, which are cheap money, really cheap money in comparison to what an LLC will cost you. So for instance, the state of Rhode Island requires you to send in $400 to the Division of Division of Taxation. $400 plus the Secretary of State has a fee. And then me, if I'm doing that tax return, I charge you a fee. So you were free. Well, I am. But the thought is the insurances that you buy are cheap money. You get a $2 million umbrella policy for a couple $300 tops. You're better off getting the insurance because even if you are an LLC, they're going to sue you. And guess what? You got to hire an attorney. Whereas if you got insurance, guess what? You call the insurance company. Yeah, I'm being sued because my car ripped up somebody's lawn, and they take care of it for you. So an LLC doesn't give you the protection you want, especially if you're negligent. Get an insurance policy.
Let me add to that. Every year, you're gonna have to file an annual report with the state you're actually registered with. If you actually have an LLC registered in Rhode Island and actually a foreign corporation in Massachusetts or Connecticut, I know a lot of you work in multi-states. You'll have to register those and file annual reports in those particular states as well. And the minimum corporate tax in those states actually applies as well, as John said. So, you know, minimum corporate tax in Rhode Island is $400.
$456 in Massachusetts.
That's correct. And the annual report is also $50 here as well. Massachusetts, $500, $500 and $50 if you're late. I know I just filed 2 late ones. So, you know, it's $550 per LLC. Connecticut is $150. And their annual expenses. John has a valid point. You know, we talked about this the other day as far as liability insurance is concerned. Add to it. You know, your base is great for what Dean has as a real estate agent, but umbrella policies are extremely inexpensive.
And it's deductible.
And it's deductible. When he's doing your taxes free.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I didn't know that, so even if, so if your business is here in Rhode Island, and you do most of your business in Rhode Island, you still have to file an report with Massachusetts. If you do.
That's only if you register the company in Massachusetts. If you've registered the company in Rhode Island and you're doing a bulk of your work here. No, if you register the company in Massachusetts for whatever reason, say you do have another office there. Example, let's say Dean opens an office in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. And you spend half of your time there. Doing work through your LLC. Technically, by law, you're supposed to go ahead and register your LLC in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as well. All right, and then pay, obviously, you know, an annual report there as well. Okay, well, it doesn't have an office in Dartmouth yet, so don't worry about it.
If I may expand on that as well. So we have a lot of dually licensed and triple license associated. So the company is based in Rhode Island.
Correct.
They sell houses in Massachusetts and or Connecticut. do they need to file in those states?
If their income is derived in Rhode Island, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, if the income is derived in Rhode Island, then the LLC can reside here.
That's
But if
Agreed?
you live in Mass,
Even if your income is, if you live in
The
Mass,
question
even if
is
the
if
income
you
is
live in-
derived here in Rhode Island through HomeSmart in Rhode Island, then you're okay. Okay, it's usually wherever the LLC is registered and the most amount of income is derived from.
What if it's a personal return? Not an LLC? You're hitting on a hot topic.
Which is why it's teamed
Yeah,
up.
that's great.
The way taxes work, if you live in the state of Massachusetts, you owe the state of Massachusetts taxes on the income that you earned. But if you earn that money in the state of Rhode Island, you actually pay taxes to the state of Rhode Island for that income. And then you pay taxes to Mass on that income, but you get a credit on your Mass return for the taxes you paid to the state of Rhode Island. So you're not getting double taxed, but you do have to file 2 tax returns. A Rhode Island tax return to show the Rhode Island income, then you pay the taxes to Rhode Island, and then in Massachusetts, you report that same income, but you report a credit for the taxes you paid to Rhode Island to offset the Mass bill that you had. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're gonna file 2 state returns.
I want to split hairs because I'm good at this, right? So the income is coming from a Rhode Island corporation here in Rhode Island, Home Smart Professionals, and there's a, one home sale in Dartmouth. Okay, does a separate and individual filing, not LLC. Does a return have to be filed in Massachusetts for that one
So
sale?
that entity, no, you're gonna file state of Rhode Island, that's all you're gonna file.
So the income is, because it's coming from your Rhode Island company,
And your Rhode Island company is based in Rhode Island, yeah.
so whether you sell in other states or not, you don't need to file in those states because your income's coming from Rhode Island. Just want to clarify, because that's, I mean.
Yep, no income derived
you
here.
op- Yep, you open a can of worms with that and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm doing that. So I just wanted.
Because she lives in Mass, right, then that's the most important.
Yep, all right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we repeated that loophole.
Before you go, is there any more questions on that?
Yes. He's getting his steps in.
Well, it's important because, I can look at the advantages and disadvantages of an LLC, but a lot of it is going to come down to what you guys have interest in and the taxation level for you guys, well, is important, but for me on an LLC, the professional credibility coming from an LLC, do you hold yourself out when you visit a client that you have that limited liability company, or do you hold yourself out just as I'm HomeSmart?
It's a good question. I'm HomeSmart.
Okay, many people do that. They just use the LLC to hold itself out, but there are other operating components to operating through an LLC can give you that extra professional touch. I don't say do it, because here's the caveat in Rhode Island, your license needs to reside here.
Yeah.
Your license can't reside with you. Unlike some states where it can, Rhode Island doesn't have that capability. Okay, so just so you guys know, even though you have the LLC, use it for what you're using it for from a tax perspective.
Yeah.
And a personal protection perspective, but not necessarily holding yourself out, okay? And those laws were just changed, by the way. Dean had something to do with it. So other considerations after forming your LLC, right? How many of you guys have gotten EIN numbers? Perfect. Have you given them to him? Because he's gonna need them for your tax returns, because it's free.
What's an EIN number?
That is an employment identification number, right? So, thank you,
For
Dean.
those who haven't-
Yeah,
Yep. Okay.
I said, I gotta read that book and pass it out. So, taking a subchapter S election requires a form called the 2553. Have you guys talked to your accountants about that being passed through taxation? You haven't. You definitely want to set up appointments with them, no doubt. So most of the pass-through taxation is the best way to go, in my opinion, unless you're actually leaving it there and you want to pay separate tax. And you take a C Corp election, which I don't recommend, and I don't think John would either. Absolutely not. For me, it forms a double taxation where you're paying tax on the LLC. And then you're also paying tax on any income that you take out of that on your own personal returns as well. So I don't know if you want to comment on that a little bit from the back, or if you want to come up here for a second.
You're correct. You pay double taxation, you're gonna pay tax at the corporate level, and then you're gonna pay a dividend tax on the dividends that you pay yourself.
Right.
There's no sense to it.
Separate bank accounts, important to keep. Keep those records tight. Make sure you document everything. Keep the LLC completely separate, as well as all your personal expenses separate. As I said, there's quite a bit of case law in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all over the country. I'm piercing that corporate veil. and making you responsible for what you did. Is W9. And who's the one, who has read the cons and being audited, where do you go? There you go. So W9 forms with the broker, you can still, come in, do your LLC. Give Dean a W9 with your EIN number. He can pay your LLC directly. What you do from that point on is up to you and your accounting team. But that separates you ideally from that income going into the LLC than you getting it personally. Okay. You really- Go ahead, I'm sorry, one more question about accounting? There you go. So transferring your personal real estate license to your LLC is a no-no in round. It needs to stay right here where it's at. It doesn't move. It's also no-no in 40-something states, 42 last I checked. Be aware, I'm gonna reiterate this because John was right. You've got additional fees for filing, it is a 400 minimum filing fee here in Rhode Island for an annual report every single year. And that is a minimum corporate tax. You will pay that to keep that LLC alive. Now, LLC is being a creature of statute. The only way to kill them is to not pay your minimum corporate tax, because the Secretary of State will revoke your charter. So you want to make sure you do that, or articles of dissolution. Normally, if someone is closing up that LLC, they'll file final tax returns with John. Then they'll come to me and they'll say, well, I just filed, I need a certificate of good standing with the Division of Taxation, the Secretary of State, and then I file articles of dissolution to dissolve it. There is another way, which I do not recommend. Let it die all by itself. If you never plan on firing it back up for any particular reason, I've gotten into big arguments with the Secretary of State. And don't really recommend going now. See,
Don't let it die. 'Cause
don't let it die.
the state of Rhode Island will send you a notice. You did not file the tax return.
Correct.
And you owe us $400 plus penalties. And if you let that go, because it won't happen right away, it'll be like 3 years later, they send you that, say, oh, by the way, you didn't file taxes for the last 3 years. You need to file them now, and you need to send us $1,200 plus penalties. So you need to dissolve so that you can avoid the cost. You really do.
Like Tony was just gonna say, but don't do that.
Don't do that. But there's a lot of people that just allow their charters to run out. No, they just allow their charters to run out because they don't pay the minimum corporate tax, they don't file the annual report. They'll have accountants that'll tell, just let it go, don't worry about it. No, bad. Because they will rack it up and will come looking for you at some point. Especially when you poke the bear at the Secretary of State's level, like I do every day.
Jesus, now I have to make a button.
No appointment with me, you can make an appointment with me anytime you want, but always file articles of dissolution if you guys are gonna get rid of it, even if you're going to, there's a number of different ways. You want to change the name, you can file an amendment, very, very easy. There's just, LLCs have minimum paperwork that the Secretary of State allows. You can do just about anything, sure.
When I met with my accountant last year, this was before I met John, obviously.
You probably pay your accountant, right? He's free.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I mentioned to him about opening an LLC for the S Corp benefits for taxes. He said about RI Small Business Corp. He recommended that instead. I have no idea why. I thought LLC was just most common and made the most sense.
Small business corps, in my opinion, if you take a look statistically, how people are kind of functioning and operating today. LLCs are 4,001. Because of the simplicity of use. An operating agreement goes a long way. You can be a single member, you don't have to have a board of directors, you don't have to do a fraction of what you would do from a corporate standpoint. So corporate books that I have at my office are yay thick. There's annual meetings that I meet with every group every single year. Folks that have LLCs, I rarely meet with them at all, rarely, unless they're making changes. So, if you're being sued, and you do have a corporation, your books better be in order. Because when discovery comes, they're gonna want a copy of everything. When was the last annual meeting? What was voted at that annual meeting? Who is the board of directors? How many people are actually managing the company? With an LLC, you can have an operating agreement that's extremely simple, single member, you're the manager, and off you go. So it's a much simpler animal altogether than having, complex corporations set up, right? So even a small corp. So you bring up corporations. Closely held corporations are really anything less than like 60 members. And then other corporations larger than 60 members, are not closely held. They're most of the cases, family operated or publicly traded. So they still have all the same levels that they had need to go through, you know, from not having a single member to a number of people that are on a board of directors.
So LLC is the way to go, sure.
For the most part, you know, when we started South Coast Title, which is now Dimension, and even the law firm, we did it as a corporation, you know, 20 years ago. I have a board of directors. Do I like listening to them? No. In jest, give you an idea, the board of directors, which is myself and there's 3 other members and then 3 outside members. Whatever's voted on, the CEO and or the president has to act on, right? You're at their mercy in a way, even though, for instance, I own a majority of the stock. But the flip side of that is, if I don't want to listen to him, can I necessarily fire him? And I would have to get approval about all 7 to get rid of 1. So would I love to change the entity from a corporation to an LLC? Sure, but why bother at this point? I've been doing this for 22 years. It just doesn't work. The corporation's worked for us very well. So there's no need for me to start swapping EINs and.
And you're used to being told what to do.
Yes. Exactly what to do. It works for me.
We have a question virtually as well. Elizabeth, I think you can pull that, sorry.
That's okay.
Could we ask Sherry to unmute?
Sure, Sherry, do you just want to unmute?
Yeah, I missed what he just said. What did you
Oh,
ask?
Can you repeat your question in chat?
Yeah, let me go back to chat. Hold on. So I have, I live in Mass, and for 20 years I've been doing real estate. My broker has always been in Rhode Island, but I've had like 3 different CPAs and and I also have an LLC in Mass that I get paid a W-2 through. All of my CPAs say I don't have to file a Rhode Island tax return. I never have.
I'm gonna have John answer that one.
His voice doesn't carry, we've got him up front.
So if your earnings are from Rhode Island sales and you can segregate the commissions that are Rhode Island sales, you're supposed to report that on your Rhode Island tax return. You'll pay taxes, not very much, and then you'll get a credit on your Massachusetts. So you might have an account that says, that's so small, I'm not going to bother. But the technical answer is, if you have a commission derived from a Rhode Island sale, you're supposed to pay taxes on that.
John, stay there. To clarify, the income is from a Rhode Island corporation to a person who resides and has an LLC in Massachusetts.
They take it back then, okay? It's
Yeah.
only if you have specific sales. I'm sorry, yes.
So
Your CPAs are correct.
All right,
Okay.
excellent. Great, thanks.
Scared me.
Yep, no, good, yep. We have a quick.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused about the LLC and the sub-S. Are they 2 separate things?
No.
They used to be.
Well, so the LLC is the entity, right, created through statute. And then you can take an election, and that election is how would you like to be taxed?
Okay.
And everything is like that, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a limited liability partnership. Well, partnerships are a little bit different, but the LLC and or the corporation can opt to be taxed in a certain election. So taking a subchapter S with filing the appropriate paperwork, which is the 2553 form, that John can file for free for you. I'm gonna get you a lot of free work. That'll allow you to have that pass through taxation through your personal income tax. And it's just a way of taxes flowing from the actual LLC to your personal tax return.
Okay, but I guess what I'm not understanding is, because I'm still like a decade behind everybody. And when I'm filing returns, do I file a separate LLC or a separate sub-S, or do I file an LLC with a check off for sub-S?
Okay, when you say file, are you filing tax returns or are you filing to register the entity?
Well, one coincide with the other.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So when I create an LLC, I'm creating it at the Secretary of State level.
Okay.
So there are elections there on how you want to be taxed. And honestly, what I do is I consult with your accountant.
Okay.
Because that's a discussion you two should be having and not necessarily me. If you're a single member LLC, some do disregard it as an entity. Some want a subchapter S, and the majority want a subchapter S. So that pass-through taxation goes from the LLC to the individual. And you can take all those deductions that John was talking about,
Okay.
your office, your cars, all that stuff.
I do want to form an LLC. can I still file with a sub-S addendum on my personal?
If you don't file an LLC.
Right.
And want to file a sub S on your, I don't think you could file a subchapter S if you haven't filed an entity.
So I would create a subchapter S entity.
You would create the entity, then
Then I-
elect the subchapter S, yes.
Okay, all right. I was confused because I was thinking that they had to go together, but I can still do one or the other when I set up the entity.
Okay, let's start over.
No,
What's the-
and I
what's the
see the
motion?
question, and I've had the question, so definitely break down the.
Yeah. So
How they interact.
we're creating a separate entity for you guys as realtors, right? So in that separate entity, whether it's a corporation and or a limited liability company, first starts with creating that entity and sitting down with you and deciding which one works best for you. Right, and normally when I do that, I involve, the accounting firm that you're using, because certainly it's important to have them involved. And I know I look over at John, but I do work with a number of larger accounting firms between here, Connecticut and Massachusetts. So having those discussions with them and with you is extremely important. How, if you're a top producer doing, 20 deals a month, you may be treated differently than a producer doing 2 and 3 homes a month, right? So first we decide, okay, which entity are we going to opt for, right? And we may decide a corporation might work best for you because you've got this huge team, or an LLC might work best for you because you don't want a board of directors and be told what to do like I'm told what to do. You create the LLC. Once you've created it and all of the proper documentations are at the Secretary of State's level, then the election comes. And that election is, how do you want to be taxed? And that's where your accounting firm will say, no, we definitely want it as a subchapter S. I've yet to have an accounting firm say to me, we want it separate and distinct as an entity. The last 5 or 6 years, every time I talk to an accounting firm, it's, we're going to do a subchapter S election. Thank you very much. I check off the box. I keep moving on. Once I've done that part of it and the Secretary of State approves it, I then move on to creating the operating agreement, all the exhibits that go with it, the initial investment, and I communicate that with the accounting firm so that they have everything that they need at the very onset. So that election piece of what you're trying to do is after the creation of the actual entity. You're still confused.
So it's how you file or
Yes.
how you elect to file. Yes.
It's how you,
Is not the entity,
no,
it's how you.
the entity is filed.
See the difference?
So I do see the difference. So now there is no longer a separate sub-S entity.
No, there is a sub-S
Okay,
entity,
that's where my Bible
But-
go with my.
but the sub-S entity is designed and created after, or taken as a tax election after you create the entity. Or just as, let's put it this way, simultaneously as I'm creating the entity, I've already talked to your accounting firm, and that's the election I'm going to take on the Secretary of State's forms.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
You want to add to that a little, John?
Yes, so now that you're elected to be an S corporation,
Right.
you're gonna file a tax return by March 15th for that S corporation. That tax return has to be completed by March 15th unless you apply for an extension. Then the profit that flows through from that S corporation tax return will go on to your personal tax return through a K1. The K1 gets reported on the second page of the Schedule E. So the S corporation tax return gets prepared, you get billed for it. That's what I'm gonna say that because it costs money. You're gonna send a check to the Secretary of State's office. It gets passed through to your personal return. The person's gonna do your personal return, including all that profit, and then you'll pay.
Okay, and now what you're talking about does not involve an LLC. It's a separate sub-S.
So the LLC and the sub-S, think of it as the same.
Yeah.
Okay, think of it as a sub-S corporation, LLC, think of it as the same entity, just you can use a different semantics for it, So you have partnership, you have C corporation,
Right.
you have S corporation, you have LLC. Look as the LLC and the S corporation is one and the same. So you're gonna file that LLC/S corporation tax return for simplicity purposes, that's what I'm doing.
Yep.
And then the profits from that flow through to your personal return. Now, if you're abusive and you're not having any, you're reporting $100,000 profit on that S corporation and it's flowing through to your personal return, you're not paying any self-employment taxes, you're cheating yourself, Social Security benefits later on, and you also open a can of worms for the IRS to come back at you later on and say, hey, you didn't pay any Social Security taxes you were supposed to, here's the bill plus the penalties. And they wait 5 years because then the bill gets really big and heavy.
But before we leave, that's the last thing I want to touch upon, which I think is extremely important, and he's brought it up a couple times, is how do you get paid through that LLC? And I think that is the most important thing, because if you're creating that LLC, you're actually, you know, to where Adam go, he left for the day, I guess. You're actually preparing for the future. If you guys are just taking straight 1099s, you're not submitting anything to Social Security, you're not submitting anything else to any other government entity, to be honest with you. So that hurts you guys long-term as an independent contractor. So creating these entities, so to speak, and I'll let John touch upon this, but really helps you guys out in the long run. You know, again, we, as Dimension and as the law firm, have corporations, so we take W-2 income. We don't take K-1 distributions. I mean, they may be at, you know, tail end of the year, that's been killer. But all of us have decided that we just want a W-2 income, because at the end of the year, I can still apply for my mortgage. You know, it's easy for tax returns. I don't necessarily mind if I'm paying the government a little bit more money. He leaves me alone. I never get audited. I never say never. 22 years later, we've yet to have an IRS agent knock on our door. Keep your books clean. But more importantly, I'm going to let him talk on, you know, payroll tax, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Really important. If you're not putting into that as an independent contractor, you're gonna be working until you're 75.
As a Schedule C employee and not electing an S corporation or an LLC, as a Schedule C employee that goes on your normal 1040, the Social Security taxes will calculate themselves and you'll pay them when you file your tax return. But you should be making estimated payments during the course of the year and not waiting to the end of the year. So on the C corporation, I mean, the Schedule C, the Social Security taxes you're paying, and you'll get a nice retirement benefit when you retire. If you're doing this through an S corporation and you're not paying any Social Security taxes, you're going to get banged by the IRS eventually. So you should take at least some kind of responsible salary and then let the profits flow through, and maybe you can avoid paying Social Security taxes on that. But take out responsible salary. If you're used to making $50,000 a year profit, maybe take a salary of $40,000 during the course of the year. And you don't have to level it out. You could take a salary of $10,000 the first month and $30,000 the last month of the year. You know, if you're unsure about your income stream, you could do it that way as well. But do take a salary, have the taxes taken out, avoid the IRS, and then the profit over that salary will then be not subject to the Social Security. Get the best of both worlds. Yeah. But do the payroll.
Very quick questions. I know we only got like 3 minutes left.
Yeah. At what level do you recommend, what level of income do you recommend doing an
Yes. But that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Yeah. So at what level of income do you recommend doing an LLC?
That depends.
That truly is the answer. It depends. There are benefits to both. Again, if you're looking for just the corporate protection, then get insurances and go with just file on your personal tax return. If you're looking to avoid some taxes, then do an LLC, take a $50,000 salary, the other 50, let it flow through and just hope the IRS doesn't chase you later on. So it all depends on the overall circumstances. Either way, you'll still get the opportunity to take SEP contributions as a deduction, your health insurance. Either way, you'll get those deductions, so you're not losing it. So it all depends on what you want to do.
Okay, because my accountant told me not to do an LLC.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer of that, because you're gonna get drunk and not pay any Social Security taxes, you're gonna cheat yourself out in the future, and then later on, the IRS will come back. But again, it's one of those things where if you want to play a game, you got $100,000 of income, take a salary of 50 or 60, so you do pay some of that, and then maybe roll $40,000 off the books, that's okay too.
Go ahead.
This, okay.
We have a question here, but Margaret, go ahead, and then Emily.
I thought I'd be like finishing with this question, because I bet that there's a lot of people who would like to still set up LLC.
Sure.
How late into the year for that tax year do you have to set one up?
Well, people set up LLCs every single day. You know, I mean, you can go late into the tax year. It all depends on your record keeping. And honestly, if you set one up in November and you've done everything personally before that, he's going to look at everything personally and then from the LLC perspective going forward. Just keep in mind that Rhode Island has changed some of its rules and regulations, where if you create an LLC in December, come the following January to March 31st, you're paying another minimum corporate tax of $400.
Yeah, for 1 month.
Yeah, 1 month.
Wow.
So people will wait until January, 3rd, and then all of a sudden I'll get 50 phone calls. Can you start off? That happened
Right now,
last year.
today, right?
Yeah, right now, today.
Right.
You know,
Great
or,
question.
I just created another LLC for myself with something else I'm doing just no more than 2 weeks ago, knowing that I'm going to spend another $400 coming January for a minimum corporate tax. And $400 for this year.
So my question is, what happens if you misplace your EIN number?
Honestly, this happened to me, and I owe the taxes, and I, for the life of me, I can't find any record of the CIN number.
Yeah, I don't really know the IRS, I'm just sorry, I want to just follow him.
So obviously, one of the things you can do is contact the IRS. Good luck on the waiting line, but yes, you can recover your EIN.
Okay, I was hoping this was gonna do it electronically, but maybe not.
Yeah, if you go to their website, and in the back of my package, they kind of give you some references. If you go to the website, there is a way in which to go online to try to retain or recover your EIN number.
Okay.
But it's a process. You've got, it's like, it's.
Would it be on form of tax returns?
It will be on former tax.
Have you ever filed a tax return with that?
A long time ago.
Because I wonder if that accountant has that tax return, it might be on that report. Okay, got it.
That's an important item. You'll get there's 2 pages that come with an EIN number, and the EIN number is right in the top right corner. Don't lose that form. Hang on to it, make it part of your corporate records, because if you do, the chase is on. Yeah, the odds are if you don't file taxes that particular year for whatever reason and forget, yeah, good luck finding it.
I know how important it is to get food in people at a certain
Yes.
point, so I've lived it, so are there any last quick questions? And you guys will be here during the lunch as well if there are personal questions, any last questions? All right, so with that, thank you both very, very much. All right, everybody ready for some more? All right, awesome. So in getting started for our next component, we're going into goal setting, and all of you know how passionate I am about setting goals and making sure that you have a personal vision for yourself, right? So we're going to lead right into this, and I have a special guest who's going to help us lead right into this, and that is none other than Mr. Chuck Lemire from Corcoran and Associates. Bob Corcoran. Hello, Chuck. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well, Dean. Thank you.
Streaming live from sunny Florida.
It is a wicked good day here in Florida.
There he is. All right, great. I wanted to make sure we pinned your video. So Chuck, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And I will have you just dig right in because they just ate. So they either have a food coma or they have more energy for you. So
No, my
so
pleasure.
take
You know,
advantage
when you were pulling the tickets for the Boston Bruins, I was like, hey, wait a minute. I want to put in my business card because I love the Boston Bruins and I want to come up and see the hockey game, for God's sakes. I just don't know where to park, you know, because Boston's crazy, but I'm glad Susan won. Hey, guys, I'm warming you up for Dean. I'm warming you up for 2023. Dean said, hey, Chuck, can you share 15 minutes? And we can do in 15 minutes what we sometimes do in 15 hours because our business is simple. It doesn't make it easy, but it is simple. So I'm going to give you the top 10, not in the Letterman order of 10 through 1. I'm going to start at the top. So I'm going to open with what the secret to success is in real estate. Many of you know I've been in this business for 34 years. Many of you might not know that I'm a 1981 Tollgate grad. So I grew up on Diamond Hill, just a couple miles from your office. And I'm going to talk today about dreaming big, your vision, goals, and how you can accomplish anything you want in your life. Because as I look back on my real estate career, I'm amazed at what I did because honestly, I really thought I was going to spend the rest of my life working at the Golden Lantern on Bald Hill Road, which isn't there anymore, but that's another story. That's how we give directions in Rhode Island, right? Go down to where the Golden Lantern used to be and take a right. Anyway, number one thing for success. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And by that, I mean, not just in real estate, it's about your physical being, your mental strength, your spiritual strength, everything about you. If you work on yourself more than you do your job, you will have success. My success came when I realized that I need to start working on myself, not what I'm doing. Because I grew up with a father who was director of special services for the city of Warwick. He devoted his life to people who were underprivileged, had a learning disability, a handicap, or something else. But he had a job. And Bob Corcoran would tell you a job is an acronym for just over broke. Because when you have a job, you're told what to do, you have roles and responsibilities, and you are in a position that's not going to change fundamentally from year to year or your income. All of us have the ability to double our production if in fact we plan accordingly, and that's what you're doing today, is working on your plan. So if you want to work on yourself more than your job, number 2 is I recommend you go to Google and download the Wheel of Balance. It's an exercise that will cover different things in your life, everything from your finances to your family, to your vacations, to your assets, to your investments, and every aspect of what we do in our lives to ensure the fact that we're not just setting goals for real estate, meaning, okay, I want to make 100 grand. Our average price in Rhode Island is, let's call it 300 grand, 2.5% commission, X amount per side. I need to do what, 17, 20 sides to make my 100 grand. So we can do so in a numeric fashion. And I know Dean always does a great job in that category and always does a great job in the other category, which is the Wheel of Balance, because if we don't have a balanced life, we have nothing. So we need to work on our numbers, but we need to work on ourselves in all aspects of our life. Number 3, begin with the end in mind. We get trapped in day-to-day activities. Those are important, and I'm going to cover those later on in the other 7. But number 3 is begin with the end in mind. You have to have a vision of what you want to be. The one day that was the catalyst for my entire career is when I was working for DeWolf New England. I was working in Westwood, Mass. The company was based in Lexington. I had a meeting with Patsy Jones. It was a part of the DeWolf management training program. And she asked me, Chuck, what's your 5-year vision? And my answer was, I want Dick DeWolf's job. And she did the one thing that was a driving force in my career, which was she laughed at me. I felt embarrassed, humiliated, but I went on to hold positions that were far greater than Dick DeWolf's leadership of DeWolf New England in the 6 New England states. So always have a greater vision in mind and believe and have faith in yourself. 4, you need to time block. If you do not manage yourself, just like you guys have been working on, do not be the employee, be the manager. But it's hard to manage yourself. The easiest way to do that is to take your calendar on a daily basis and block your time. An hour for prospecting, an hour for research, an hour for yourself, your family. Take time to schedule your family vacations as much as you do take time to schedule that hour that you spend prospecting in today's business. Number 5, high dollar producing activities. HDPA is what Bob and I teach our teams. If you are going to a home inspection, is that a high dollar producing activity? If you are going to, a smoke certificate, if you're going to something that doesn't allow you to get face-to-face with someone who can buy or sell, that is not a high dollar producing activity. Do we need to do those things? Absolutely. Can you have somebody else do those things? Maybe. Take a look at how you can leverage what Dean provides and the company provides and the leadership and the services that are there. Can you hire someone else at a lower dollar producing activity to do showings or to do other activities so that you can continue to do high dollar producing activities? First 4, let's review. 1, work harder on yourself. 2, download the Wheel of Balance. 3, begin with the end in mind, which is a book by Dr. Stephen Covey. 4, time block. 5, high dollar producing activities. Those are the basics. So let's get into the last 5 that truly make a difference. I want each of you to ask yourself, who holds you accountable? Because for most of you, it's yourself. And our challenge with that is we let our heads attack us on a daily basis. We are in the real estate business paid to negotiate. And the problem is we negotiate with ourselves. I wake up in the morning and my mind attacks me and it says, oh, Chuck, don't go to the gym. It's way too early. It's dark. The bed's comfortable and nice and warm. Stay there. It's okay. Don't worry. And I start convincing myself not to do something. You can convince yourself to do something just as quickly as you can not to do something. The difference is your brain will always go back to not doing something, and it's based on how we were originally wired. We were wired not to go out of our cave because there was danger out there. We were wired not to take risks because that puts us at risk, whether that be financially, physically, or emotionally. And especially in today's world, you are barraged by Instagram, Twitter, and other mechanisms to not venture out and not say something, otherwise you'd be attacked. So our brains sabotage ourselves naturally. What we need to do is reprogram ourselves to literally not think, act. Don't think, just act. Alarm goes off, foot hits the floor, you just go. Don't think, just do. Easier said than done, but that's number 6. Accountability, hold yourself accountability. How do we hold? Let's see, Dean, if I can quickly share my screen. I can't because that's disabled, but maybe you could enable it and I can show you something later on for accountability, but it's okay because just know you either need to hold yourself accountable or get a partner to hold you accountable. I'll tell you one thing, when these 2 boys were like 2 and 3, they held me accountable. Why? They wanted stuff. Dad, can I have a glove, a football, a bike? Can I go and do this? They were holding me accountable to go out and sell stuff. Because in those years, I was working as a realtor selling real estate. So my kids held me accountable. Why? I wanted to have a financial security and a lifestyle for my family. So sometimes it's who's at home. However, you need someone else. It doesn't matter whether it's your colleague at HomeSmart, a coach, or a system, but get something to hold yourself accountable. Number 7. What part of the business are you going to operate in? And this is the big one with today's market change. 24 months ago, you guys were running around like chickens with your heads cut off. You had a buyer and you had to race to a new listing to place an offer in the best possible terms possible. Cash, no contingencies, waivers, escalation clauses, all sorts of stuff that we had never dealt with in the real estate industry. Today, you don't hear those words. The market has shifted. What today is a normal market, and I'm going to touch to close later on what today's market is and how it's a great opportunity for you. But today's marketplace is different. You have the opportunity of conversations with your customers and clients when 24 months ago you didn't. You had to get that offer in, you were an order taker. You just had to move quickly. There was no time for conversation. Today's a different day, so don't act like you did 24 months ago and expect results today. You need to act differently. So what part of the business are you working in? I want you to just jot down the different areas that we focus on in real estate. Rentals is number 1. 18-year-old, 22-year-old leaves the house. The first thing they're going to do is rent. Are you going to do rentals? More than likely not, but quite frankly, where the price of rentals has gone, might be okay to do. Why? If you establish the depth of relationship, you have the second stage, which is first-time home buyers. Are there first-time home buyers in the marketplace? Now, I got off a call with a team in Savannah, Georgia. 24 people, they do approximately 1,000 transactions a year. And I said to them, hey guys, how was your activity at the open houses this weekend? Tell me a little bit about what's going on in Savannah. This one young lady raised her hand and said, Chuck, man, I was swamped. And I was swamped with first-time home buyers. I said, really? Because my guess is if you polled all the agents at HomeSmart or 200 agents in Rhode Island, every single one of them would say, oh, Chuck, no, interest rates are up. First-time home buyers, no, they're not in the marketplace or that business is down. Absolutely not. I said to the young lady, why were there first-time home buyers at your open house? She said, I'm glad you asked because I did ask a couple of them because I was a little surprised. She said, one of them said, I got to get the hell out of this dump that I'm living in. I hate it. The people above me have parties at 2 o'clock in the morning. The police were in my parking lot last week. I can't stand the environment. I'm going to buy a house. Does she care about the interest rates? No. The second person, This person was more, if you've ever studied DISC, the second person was more either a D or a C. Cs are people who dot I's or cross T's. Ds understand the whole structure of something. The person articulated to the realtor, based on where rents have risen and current interest rates are today, I know that my mortgage payment is going to be less than my rental payment. I'd rather put money towards equity and have more cash flow on a monthly basis. The buyer said what the realtor should be saying. So what part of the business are you going to work in? Rentals, first-time home buyers, move-up buyers that have just had a baby, people who just have the ability to, through a new job, buy a bigger house, people who are relocating, new construction, builders. Here's the big one. And I say big one because if you can handle this call, you can handle any call. How many of you have this week pulled out the obituaries and seen a death notice from someone whose partner has died? In other words, the obituary reads, Mrs. Lemire on 300 Diamond Hill Road had her husband Henry pass away from a long-term illness, leaves son Henry, which is me, I'm Chuck, but another son, Tim, in Providence, and another daughter, Mary in Westwood. How many of you have called that person and said, Mrs. Lemire, I just wanted to express my extreme condolences. I noticed the death notice in the Providence Journal of Warwick Beacon, and I'm your local realtor. And I just wanted to say how saddened I was at your loss. I've had the same thing happen in my family, but I also wanted to let you know that I'm here for you. Because very often people who have had a partner die don't want to stay in the family house. And it may not be this month or this year, but I just wanted to let you know that when you do wish to sell your home, I'm here for you. You think a FSBO is a tough call? Make that call and you can make any call. Why? Because you need to really get in touch with why you're in this business as a realtor. And most people who are great in this business recognize the fact that they help people at one of the most important moments of their life, whether that be first-time home buyer, which is a joy, or whether it be like my mother at 300 Diamond Hill Road, who sold her house within 6 months of my father dying. So what category are you going to work in? First-time home buyers, divorces, death, new construction, investors. Pick your category, because 24 months ago, you needed to grab that lead and go. You couldn't think about where that category was. You had to act quickly. Today's marketplace takes thought. It takes a very specific script, because your script to my mother on Diamond Hill Road is very different than that first-time home buyer. So you need to work on your craft and know your craft and know your script. That's number 7. Number 8. Create certainty in your business. And what I mean by that is we live in very uncertain times. People don't know whether our interest rates are going to go up or down. We'll find out today. People don't know whether or not prices are going to go up or down. We'll find out next month or next year. Create certainty, because when you create certainty with the buyer or seller, based on your knowledge of the marketplace, being truthful and authentic, being current and relevant with your information, you create a relationship that's deep, and you create certainty, and people build trust by that certainty. Know your market. When I say work on yourself, know what's going on in Rhode Island. Population adjustments, businesses, housing starts. Know your market, because now you're able to have a conversation with a client where 24 months ago you were just racing around. Number 9, you guys, you got to believe it's possible. And I'll be honest with you, when I graduated from Tollgate, I really thought I was just going to stay in the state of Rhode Island. When I graduated from college, I went back to working in a restaurant. I thought I was going to be, just a waiter, a maitre d'. I got into real estate. I thought I'd be a real estate agent. And then there was that meeting with Patsy Jones, coupled with going to seminars from Tommy Hopkins to Floyd Wickman, and I began to work on myself. I've been the chief operating officer of multiple corporations, including HomeSmart, and have the honor and privilege of signing Dean's franchise agreement for HomeSmart in Rhode Island. you know, you can do anything you want to do. I never thought that I would go to the locations that I've gone to and work with the people that I have. My life and my career has been blessed only because I've worked on it. But you have to believe it's possible. So when you set your goals, we've all heard about SMART goals that need to be specific and measurable and obtainable and realistic and timed. That's true. However, you need to believe that you can actually achieve that. And most of the time we're pulled down by our friends and family to say, oh no, don't risk that. No. And we're pulled down. Stay isolated. And number 10, which is one of the more important ones in today's marketplace, ignore the noise. Do not listen to other realtors on Instagram and Facebook. Do not listen to certain reports about, you know, what's going to happen. It matters not. What is important? What is the motivation of your client? And just like my example with that young professional in Savannah, with the person at her open house, as a first-time home buyer, her motivation was to get the hell out of the shithole she was living in. And she was highly motivated. Find out what your client's motivation is and always remind them of it, because they're going to be distracted by reports about interest rates fluctuation, value fluctuation. That does not matter as much as the motivation of an individual who will do anything regardless of the circumstances. Because many of you who are listening to this have been licensed in the last 3 to 5 years and have no comprehension of what it's like, as I have, to work in an environment where interest rates were 15%, not 5%. But we sold homes at 15%. Why? People need homes. People buy because of their circumstances or their motivation. Find out what it is. Ask them qualifying questions. Work on your script. Work on yourself and recognize this is the marketplace that you need. Not the last one. 24 months ago, you were one of 1,000 or 3,000 order takers. In today's marketplace, you can differentiate who you are from everyone else based on your experience, your knowledge, and your approach to the business. This is the marketplace that you need. You're working on your goals. You're doing so at a time that is the best opportunity possible. Do not listen to the Projo. Don't listen to the soothsayers. Don't listen to the naysayers. They are doing so to sell magazines and newspapers and radio spots. Listen to yourself. Listen to Dean. Listen to your peers. Focus on your goals and believe that you can achieve anything that you want. With technology today, you can double your business while reducing the time. Do not act as the employee in a job. Don't even act as the manager. Act as the entrepreneur. Michael Gerber wrote the book, The E-Myth. Stick in that entrepreneurial mindset and recognize that you're in business for yourself, just not by yourself. You have strength of leadership with Dean and the organization. You have quality of the people that surround you at HomeSmart. And I'll leave you with one thing. You guys will have more leads as you gain market share. You currently have a fighting tremendous force of 250 qualified realtors at HomeSmart. What would happen if you doubled that agent count? What would happen if each one of you brought in two qualified people? You are not going to decrease leads, you're going to increase leads. I'll tell you a story. My responsibility as the chief executive of RE/MAX in the 1990s and into the 2000s was to grow RE/MAX throughout New England. I've sold many franchises to people like Carolyn Petrecchio, Susie DeLeon, or other people that operate RE/MAX offices in your state. I had Richard Zompa call me one day. And he said, Chucky, and you know how, if you know Richard, you know how Richard speaks. Chucky, let me tell you, I can't believe what's going on. Our phone is ringing off the hook. Why? It wasn't the market. It was their market share. Richard understood by placing more franchises and by building that agent count, RE/MAX at that time had a dominant market share. And when they did, they had brand recognition and buyers were calling them. Do yourself a favor. Find people in the marketplace that work for other companies that share your culture or the HomeSmart experience. Share your principles and values and just introduce that person to Dean. Or introduce 2 people in the next 12 months. Double the size of your company, increase your market share, and you will see a 2x on your lead flow. Trust me, I've seen it in any marketplace, good, bad, and challenging. So work on yourself and your goals. Support the company because the company supports you. Do not listen to the noise and focus on your business to develop a strategic approach to each one of the areas of the business you want to focus in, everything from rentals to someone who's selling their home for the very last time. You're real estate agents. Be proud of what you do because you provide home ownership. You're involved in one of the most important decisions people make in their lives. Be proud of that. And I'm very grateful and proud to be able to share time with you. Dean, I think that's over 15 minutes, but that's the best I can.
It normally is, Chuck. And I appreciate it very much. So I thank you, everyone.
Guys, have a great day. Enjoy and have fun setting your goals. It was a pleasure being with you.
Doug, thank you for spending time. Really appreciate it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, so everyone ready to plan goals?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now here's the thing. Chuck hit on some really incredible points there, right? When he talked about, don't be an employee. You are a business owner. We talk about that often. Now, here's the duality. Those sheets are in order to, so just pass out each of the 2. She already collated those. So we have an inner struggle every day as real estate professionals. Okay, and that inner struggle is that we run our own business, but we also work for ourselves. So there are some days we get up and we're an employer. There are other days we get up and we're an employee. And that's the inner struggle. Because many of you, how many of you had a career in the past before you got into real estate? Okay, and some of you have heard this analogy, so bear with me. So you worked for somebody else, right? And you wanted to be as successful as they were because they were successful in your eyes, assumingly. Okay, well, so we all got into real estate because we wanted to be our own boss, because our last boss was super successful and we knew we wanted to be as well. Well, what we fail to remember is that employer, that boss, was successful because of your hard work. So you got into business for yourself to be your own boss, but you didn't have the employees doing the work for you. Well, so now you're both. You wear both hats. And at different times, you need to be out and accountable to yourself for both hats, because you're going to work as an employer, working on your business and running your business. But if you don't have your employee doing the work and doing the tasks, then your employer is never going to be successful. Make sense? So make sure you know the difference. When Chuck mentions doing the tasks and the accountability, at the end of the day, you can't hold yourself accountable to a goal. You can't do it. But you can hold yourself accountable to the tasks that you need to perform that will ultimately allow you to get to your goal. Make sense? And you also can track your numbers to help you understand for yourself how to track what you're doing to ultimately realize those results. Make sense? Make sense?
Yes.
All right, great. So first on Word document, please. Now, here's the thing. You need to do these exercises for yourself as your own employer, okay? I'm not going to go detail by detail by detail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the tools that you can use, and whatever help you need with it individually, come see me individually. But at the end of the day, there are going to be numbers here in these examples that you're not going to know. So, so if we spend all our time looking at specific numbers, everybody in this room has a different number, a different goal, a different outlook on things. So it needs to be personal to you. Goal setting is always personal to oneself. True? Okay. But what we have are tools for you, and we're gonna send it as a follow-up so that you have the tools. So let me show you the way to go about it in setting yourself up for a goal. Now, in real estate, we tend to set ourselves up for income goals, right? Because that determines how many homes we want to sell. I urge you to have personal goals as well. This isn't an exercise for personal goals. We're looking at your business goals. Your business goals should also not only be income-based. Goals are much bigger than dollar producing and dollar result. But at the end of the day, if we say, well, how many homes do I need to sell to earn a certain amount of money? Well, that's what we need to be able to identify. And that's what we can identify with these tools. But don't limit any of your goals ever to income goals. Okay. So with that, you have your goal setting sheet in front of you. This is just a basic sheet that allows you to get to the heart of what you need to do in your business. Now, this exercise you're doing with me. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
I want everyone to write down on their sheet, you have a pen in front of you, and those at home, grab a pen. And write down what your net income goal is. Now, I'm talking net income. Now, you're gonna have expenses, you're gonna have house expenses, you're gonna, have life expenses, whatever it is, school tuition for the kids, whatever that looks like. What money do you need to earn or want to earn in order to have the life you want in 2023? What is that number? That's after you've paid your expenses, business expenses. Okay. Now, from there, I want you to factor in your business expenses. There are always estimates out there in the marketplace. There are models out there that say your expenses should not exceed a certain percentage of your income. That magic number out there that the pros use is 29%. 29% of your income. You should not exceed 29% with your business expenses. Okay, so divide that in to find out what that number is. Okay, from there, you need to factor in what's considered your cost of sales. Now, your cost of sales as a real estate professional is the amount that you pay to your brokerage or monies that you pay if you have a team. Maybe you're paying a referral fees to a team. Maybe you have referral fees for income that's generated from others in the industry, referral income. You're paying that out. Okay, so ultimately, what are the expenses you pay? So we have some folks from other companies joining us here today, right? And I'm excited about that. We always open our education, we want to share. So what is it that you're paying to your brokerage? What percentage of your income? What does that look like based on that amount? And that number ranges anywhere. It could be from 10, 12% up to 30%, depending on what your compensation model is. So only you know what that model is. Okay, here at HomeSmart, it's a flat fee with a cap. You factor that in, right? It could be a flat amount at that point, depending on where you are in your cap. All right. So whatever that number is to you, it's income specific or transaction specific in the case of HomeSmart. Right. So you may have to go back, and by the way, you may go back and adjust the numbers based on how you get to that point. Okay. Question in the back?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how do we do that exactly because of the flat.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So, with our flat fee model, if you expect to cap based on the number of transactions you do in a year, then you could just write in that cap amount plus any monthly expenses that you have for your monthly fees. Okay. Again, you may have to go back to it. So if your goal shows that you need 8 transactions, because everybody's got their own goal. If your goal says you only need 8 transactions, then you're not going to cap. You're going to go back to the top and reduce that because you never reached the cap. You follow me? So, in some models, it's a percentage of income and it's easier to just plug that in the beginning. Okay. So then you have to figure out taxes. And we heard a lot about taxes. Okay. Now, this too may go back and say, well, you know what? I was off on my goal based on my tax bracket. You could be in a 24% tax bracket. You could be in a 30%. You could be in 35. We could bring you up to 50% if you're making millions of dollars. Just kidding. They only pay 1%. But whatever that amount is, it's going to be affected by your income goal. All right. So now take those numbers and add that to the net income goal that you have. And that gives you your true income goal. See how high it went? Because many people, how many of you in your mind, don't raise your hand, but how many of you thought, I want to make 6 figures, I want to do 100,000 this year? And now I just increased it exponentially for you to realize that making 100,000, you got to make how much? 160, 180? Yeah, I just blew your mind, right? But that's how you have to think, because the only money you earn is money after you pay these expenses. And again, that's before your personal expenses. We can't account for that. By the way, one of the tools we're sending away allows you to help with your personal budget as well. Okay, but that's where it is personal for you. Now, does everyone have a number for your gross income goal? Okay, now you'll all see that I subscribe to the KISS process, right? Keep it simple, sweetheart. Right, exactly. So, this form is just about that. Now, the other tools are going to help you break it down, but what we need is a mindset. Okay, because what we do every day is just go about thinking, I got to get another house. I got to sell another house. I got to get another listing. Well, what did that extra sale do for you in relation to your goal? Because when you see where it comes down at the end in this exercise, it may not be about another 5 sales to reach that goal. It may just be another 2 sales. But in our mind, we say, oh, I want to do 20 sales. What does that mean to you? What does making 20 sales do for your goal? Your goal may not require 20 sales, but take a little time off, right? Because it's all about life balance as well. So everyone's got the gross income goal, right? Now, take that number and divide it by your average brokerage fee. Okay, now when I say your average brokerage fee, that's based on sides. Okay, common and typical in the marketplace is anywhere from 2 to 2.5%. If you're a 3%er, congratulations. Okay, that's awesome. So if you do more buyers, think of what's being offered in MLS. Is it 2? Is it 2.5%? Is it 2.25? To round it in the middle, is it 2.75 because you get 3% on your listing? Whatever that is to you. Is it 1.5? We're gonna have a different class. Okay. But what is that number based on your history? Now, those who are new in the industry, we don't know what to base it on. Okay, so those who are new in the industry, I might suggest 2.25, based on buyer sides being between 2 and 2.5. Everybody agree that that's a fair number? Because I want to help those who don't have a frame of reference in the history. Okay, so 2.25%. Right? That tells you how much volume you need to sell. Add some commas because there aren't too many digits there. It just looks like a big number. Okay, so that tells you how many millions in volume you need to sell. How many of you are already overwhelmed? Okay, not that bad. Okay, good. All right. Now let's take that and divide it by an average sales price. Now, Chuck has been out of Rhode Island a little while. He said 300,000 is an average sales price. Okay, what's the average sales price in Rhode Island?
413.
413, 450, right? Yes, that is good. So can we feel safe to round it at 400,000? Okay, it's up. By the way, don't expect that for too long, but it's not going to drop overnight. Okay, now, by the way, I urge you to break this down and make it personal to yourself. What's your average sales price? I mean, a $400,000 sales price is all things considered in the state. If 400,000 is your highest sales price, use a lower number. Keep it real. Okay, so you're going to divide that by your average sales price. That gives you the number of units you need to close. Okay, when we say sales, we think units. Everybody have that number? Okay, that's less overwhelming, right? Still overwhelming, depending on your goals, right? Who didn't come up with that number needs me to review something. All right, so we all have that number. That's your personal number of transactions you want to close. Okay, now here's where you need to think. We need to divide that by your conversion rates. Okay, so when we look at the conversion rate, what percentage of sales agreements actually close? What percentage? Now, feel free to share numbers because we want to help those who don't have the history. How many deals fall apart? If you did 10 deals, what's the percentage that fall apart in today's market? 2, 1. Hopefully not 5, depending on the month. Okay, 2 years ago, it was 5. Because people were just securing houses and backing out. So is it fair to say 80% of contracts close?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if your number is 95%, use that number. Has to do with your sales. So see how we're breaking it down to the ridiculous. Now, so that percentage of transaction closed, that brings us to how many contracts you need to sign. Sales agreements. Because if the number above is how many close and 80% of them fall apart, it gives you the number of how many agreements you need, contracts you need signed in order to get that number to close. Make sense? With me? Okay, so now we're going to divide that by the percentage of listing or buyer agreements that go into sales agreement. So a buyer hires you. Let's pretend you do a buyer agreement with every buyer. And we know you don't do a listing without a listing agreement. What is the percentage of people that actually hire you that actually go to contract? So if you only did listings, what percentage of your listings actually go into pending? If you only do buyers, what percentage of buyers that hire you, truly hire you, that are loyal to you with or without a contract, go into agreement? Now that number may be 100%. It may be 90, it may be 95. How many buyers do you work with for months and they just fall off the face of the earth, or they don't qualify? Or they went out and bought a car and now they don't qualify, okay? How many sellers you just decide, I can't work for you? We just can't communicate. We need to cut ties, okay? What's that number? Help me out with what we should use as an average number. 90? 90%? If you take listings or work with buyers, will 90% of them go into a sales agreement?
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so, because you're good. Right? So 90% for those who don't have past numbers to use. Okay? Now we're going to break that down and we're going to say, what percentage of interviews that you go on, whether it's a listing interview or a buyer interview, actually hire you? So if you only work with buyers and you meet with buyers and you're interviewing for the position of being their realtor for life, how many of them hire you? If you only work with sellers, same thing. Now, you can also break these numbers down between buyers and sellers based on your own business, so you know where to focus. This is just a thought process for you to navigate. So what percentage, somebody tell me, if you only did listings, what percentage of seller interviews list with you? Give me your number. 98%. 80.
85,
85.
95.
95. Okay, now part of this is part of this is going to be based on your history and your type of business, right? Now, if you do all repeat and referral business, that number should be 99.9.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if you're newer to the industry and then, you got an at-bat, you got an internet lead, let's talk internet leads. Okay, you're lucky if you even got the interview. All right, if you got the interview, you deserve that listing. Okay, but if you're going to interview somebody you don't know and you weren't referred to, would 50-50 be, you got a 50-50 shot at this? That would have been my number, by the way. If I never met this person, I got a 50-50 shot. Why? Because there's 7,000 of us.
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be 80. I mean, look at the extreme, bring it up. Just, don't bring it too low where you're overburdening yourself with too high of a goal. Play it real. Make sense? Everybody have a number?
Yeah.
Okay. That tells you how many interviews you need to hold.
That's a lot of interviews.
Right? Right? Yeah, I'll talk faster so you can get started. Okay, we're running out of time. Right? Somebody share with me how many interviews they need to hold.
26.
What is it?
29.
27, 26? 26? Okay. Right, so that's over 2 a month. Are
That's
you?
not bad.
That's not bad. I'm surprised your numbers aren't higher. Okay, that's right. And that I would expect actually. Yep, so let's make the number bigger. So now, what percentage of leads will actually schedule an interview? 50-50. How many people do you need to speak to that will actually say, hey, come on over, or I'll come into the office? 50-50 shot? Okay, now it depends on the lead. Okay, but you know, it's 50-50, a safe bet. I got a lead from somewhere, somebody referred me, you know, they may not be ready, it may be somebody that I talked to. I can feel the stress in the room.
Yeah.
So Chantal is like sweating. So,
Yeah.
you know, so maybe it's 60-40, right? Because you're all better than 50-50 chance, right? So give yourself 60%. Okay, so that gives us the number of leads you need. Okay, somebody give me a number.
75.
What is it?
75.
75. Wow, awesome. Okay, any 88? 108. 108. They're making you work harder, Mark. They forget the direction of these numbers isn't exciting. So you're not a fool. It's like how I win in golf every time. I get the highest score every time, right? So you know, your goal isn't to have more work or need more leads. So what we need to do is, and well, let me back up. Can we agree that there's only a certain number of leads around altogether?
Yeah.
There are a certain number of leads. Our goal is to make sure we get our unfair share of them, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, because there is only a certain number of leads available, that's not the bad news. That's just the finite news. What you need to do is increase your conversions. Because it's not about getting more leads. It's about shifting your conversion rates. How do we convert more people to an appointment? How do we convert more of those appointments into an agreement? How do we convert more of those agreements into a contract? How do we convert more of those into a closing? Okay, that's the skills-based tactic in our day-to-day business.
And you're gonna tell us now? No. How do we do that?
And we've been doing that every day. So the secret is work hard, focus on your clients, the money will follow. And come to as many classes as we can to learn from each other. All right, now. What's the number? 100 something? 80 something? Okay. Divide it by 12. That's the number of people you need to talk to this month. Now, by the way, don't start in January. Start now. It's never too late. Okay. Now, that's the number of leads that you need to find in order to get that number of people to meet with you, in order to get that number of people to list with you, in order to get that number of people to go into agreement with you, in order to get that number of people to sell a contract, in order to get that number of people to close. Make sense? Now, that goal, that income goal, is just an imaginary number if you don't quantify it with what you need to do to get there. Now, when you set out and you said $100,000 or whatever your number is, it was like, oh my God, how am I gonna get there, right? How many of you thought, how the hell am I gonna do it now? Right? Yep. Okay, well, we just showed you. Now, what are the activities you're going to do to get to that? Well, that's on a day-to-day basis. I know some of you are coming in for the role play phone calling session that we have on Monday morning that we've been posting. Okay, we're gonna be making calls, we're gonna get together, we're gonna talk about some scripts, and you're just gonna call your sphere of influence from your phone. Now, you know, I mean, it's dialing for dollars, right?
Now, you can do that on your own. We just had some folks saying, hey, would somebody be interested in doing this? I don't hold myself accountable and I need somebody else to do it because I'm not good at it. Because none of us are good at holding ourselves accountable. Because we're our own boss, right? So we're doing things like that, right? But you need to find ways to do that, to implement into your business every day. Because if that's how many people you need to meet every month, now break it down into how many you need to meet every week. Because it's easier to get up every week. And if that number was 88 a year, what did that come to a month? 7 a month. So you only need to meet get 7 leads. You may need to meet 107 to get 7 leads. Right? Because we can keep breaking this down. Well, if that's how many leads I need, how many people do I need to talk to find them, right?
Exactly.
And because 7 is a low number, but that's how, now we gotta get to 7. So if you need 7 a month, we always round up, it's 8, so it's 2 a week. You need 2 leads this week. And you need to hold yourself accountable to your conversion rates in order to make sure that that 7 is enough. Make sense?
Right.
Now, if halfway through the year you realize your conversion rates aren't what you imagined, change the numbers. Because you'll always get the same results if you always do what you've always done. Right? You see the point. And this is why we have this worksheet. And by the way, we'll send you a clean one electronically. So, but this is why this is a personal exercise. What's your number? You may look at it now and say, oh my God, no, I can't do this. I got to change my goal. Never change your goals. Always change your habits. Okay? So never, ever sacrifice. All right? So those are the numbers you need to look at, right? Now, with that, second sheet, if you would. Your next sheet is your weekly tracking sheet. Okay? Now, we're going to send you it in Excel so you can change it. What's in there is just an example. Okay? Just a simple tool. By the way, some people use electronic programs that will allow you to do this as well. I say use what works for you. I'm here to give you the mindset. You figure out the methodology. So this sheet just allows you to say to myself every week, what do I need to do? If I need 7 leads this month, rounded it up to 8, okay? So because it's easier math, we never round down. Can we agree with that? Never round down because that sacrifices a goal. Okay, so what am I doing each week in order to get those 2 leads? It could be personal notes, it could be phone calls, it could be pop buys, it could be a combination of any of this. You could be buying leads. Okay, national average for lead conversion is 2 to 5%. 2 to 5%. Okay, have that at the bottom of the list. Internet leads, right? But these are the things. How many personal referrals am I given, right? Okay, referrals given. How can you create referrals? Somebody tell me.
Do a good job.
Doing a job, absolutely, right? Okay, say it.
Ask for it.
Ask for it. How many of you calling your sphere of influence? There goes Dean talking about that sphere of influence again. Hey, he doesn't get it. I'm supposed to meet new people who don't know me, don't like me, don't know that they should trust me. When I have this whole database of people who already do, why would I call them? That's your best leads, that's your source. These are your raving fans. So if you're calling them and you're being in touch with them, you ask them to support your business. It's so great to talk to you. As you know, I run my own business. I own a real estate practice. I'm not a salesperson. I'm running a business. And I was wondering if I could ask you, when you run into somebody that you know that mentions real estate, do you have a realtor that you refer them to already? No? Oh, okay. I'd like to be that guy. Do you mind if I connect with you every now and then? Just to touch base, to help ensure that you remember me when somebody you know mentions real estate. Oh, Dean, I'll remember you. Of course I'll remember you. No. That's okay. I just want to touch base. Maybe I'll send you a newsletter. Maybe I'll send you some market insights. Maybe I'll send you a home bot. Maybe I'll send you different things. Whatever that looks like. Do you mind? No, okay, yeah, if you feel you need to, no problem. But I'll remember you. No, I don't mind. Look, I'm asking for permission to haunt. Halloween was the Monday. Find the permission to haunt, because when you call them and they say, why do you keep calling me? Because you said I can. Now make it light. But that's the thing, be in touch with these people because you need 7 leads a month. Why wouldn't you get it from people you already know? You're not gonna get a lead from somebody you met in the doctor's office. It's so nice to meet you. Would you refer me to your friend? You got kidney stones, so do I. You have friends with someone, right? So, so find the way, build those referrals, okay? So this is your tracking sheet. Everybody gonna use it?
Yeah.
Excellent. So now let me show you some much more elaborate tools that you can use if you're willing. 3. Look at this. Oh, Jesus. That's why I started with this. Okay? So we're going to be sending these to you. This first one is your business planning budget. Now, jump to the first, you did, thanks. So literally, this is an Excel spreadsheet. You're gonna fill it out with your own information. Now, the green squares are last year's business. If you don't have last year's business, it mentions it, just estimate, right? But you're going to go in and look at what your last year GCI and your expenses and your taxes and how many transactions you did in each month. Because just like we just did, we break down to your monthly activities and what your transactions were. Okay, now again, I'm going to be sending this to you, so don't worry about it. And we have a goal setting recording from HomeSmart that we're waiting on because it's being edited or finalized, that explains exactly how to complete this. Okay, because I don't know about you, but my eyes cross when I see something like this. All right, so I again, keep it simple, sweetheart. So you're going to break down, you're going to look at your whole business analysis. The first section identifies your personal net income. By the way, you just told yourself what it is. Okay, scroll down a bit. Now you're going to go into your budget. What expenses did you have last year? Or estimate, okay, plug something in. By the way, if you didn't have this for the last year, you're new in the business, well, you're going to have it next year. Guarantee it. Okay, so now's your chance to track it. Okay, so you're going to carry in this information to be able to see what am I spending, because what is the maximum percentage of your income that you should be spending on expenses? 29%. Okay, right? Scroll down. It comes right into based on your average commission, what your income goal is. Now, we just did this, and that's why I started with this. If I brought up this Excel spreadsheet as a start, we'd all be like, oh, okay, it's time to go, right? But this is the way to track it for you overachievers who really want to have an Excel spreadsheet that can sing and dance. Okay, now, second tab, marketing plan. Okay, you're going to set yourself up for a marketing plan with your expenses. Feel free to scroll right down, Elizabeth, thanks. So what are the items that you're doing for your marketing? What is it you're doing? Are you doing flyers? Are you doing just listed, just sold cards? Well, how do we budget for that? Well, an estimated amount of listings that you take for your just listed, just sold card. What are the expenses? If you're paying for a CRM, you're doing any of that, you're doing Facebook ads, boosting ads, anything like that. You're going to plug in that number because your goal is to see, am I spending too much? By the way, another way to increase your net income is to lower your expenses. Okay, so 29 is a rule, it's not a goal. Okay, it's okay to do 21, 22 too, right? Okay, so you're going to look at that. Third tab. Now we go into your personal budget. This allows you to take your numbers, look at this, and your other halves, if you have a significant other, incorporate your household income to figure out what are those goals to set yourself up for all the investing you want to do with Northwestern Mutual. Okay, so it sets it up. It's personal to you. Glad to look at it one-on-one if anyone needs help with it. But can you see how it can benefit you in tracking your business? And can we all agree that we need to track our business every day? Every day. Okay, awesome. Next one. Next slide. Form. Okay, now this is where you set up for a marketing plan. So the last one allowed you for the marketing budget. This allows you for a full marketing plan. You put in your costs and expenses and it helps you identify how many transactions, you identify how many transactions you should get from that business. And it taps it right into your personal goal. So now you know where to focus your business. What activities are going to give you the highest return? Chances are it's going to be what? Referrals. SOI, what's that? Sphere of influence. Does everybody have one? Yes, you just haven't tapped into it. Okay, so so this is the marketing plan aspect of it. You break down. Make sense?
Yeah.
Do we have another form?
We have fun.
Social media. Okay, now we go into social media. Does anybody here do social media? Does anybody feel it's important? Yes, it is. Does everybody agree that it is the only way that you should be marketing yourself in today's market?
Yes.
Put your hands down. I disagree.
I don't, I get more things from social media than I do. For people I don't know, people I do know. I have people message me on Facebook and say, my neighbor's is gonna sell, call it out. So I mean,
Well, so here's the thing. They're contacting you on social media,
yes.
but you have a relationship with them. When I say social media, I'm thinking, oh, I just posted a new listing. Oh my God, everyone's gonna call me and list with me now. Okay, oh yes, look, I just sold a house. Everybody needs me. No, okay? And how often do I speak with somebody that I say, are you in touch with your sphere of influence? Yes, I post on Facebook every day. Oh. God. Okay, so you need to connect with people. You need to connect. I urge you to get out of social media. Use social media to find out what's going on in somebody's life and reach out to them and say something to them. So example, okay, I know a realtor and I did this in my career as well, but I know somebody who's still doing it. You should all do it now. Okay, you see a friend that's getting engaged. You find some really inexpensive paperback book on Amazon that talks about wedding planning. And you have a stack of these books on your desk. Now, it could also be a new baby. Tips for a new baby when you're expecting. And you buy the paperback books in Amazon are what, $5.99, $9.99? Heck, you can write one yourself with a ghostwriter and sell it for $9.99. Everybody's doing it. Right? I see everybody's writing the same books and you should, right? What a cool way to market yourself. Okay, but these cheap books, it's not about the book. It doesn't matter what's in the book. It doesn't matter if they even read the book. But what matters is they saw your name. So what I would do is I would actually take the book. I'd see something on Facebook and oh my God, they're gonna have a baby. I'll take the book. I already have the envelopes because you need to pre-plan this. Every time somebody does something, you don't go order a book and order an envelope and order a stamp and do this. I mean, you may as well stay in bed, right? So I grab a book, write something inside the cover so they don't give it away, write something in it, put your business card in there. By the way, use your business card as a bookmark inside the cover. Thought of you specifically on page 9. I've marked the page for you. When they open the page, there's your business card. Okay, so it's just, I thought of you, I saw you posted on Facebook. Congratulations, good luck, hope everything's well. Does it matter if you know them that well? Hell, your friends, right? On Facebook. Okay, right? How many of you have done that? How many of you are willing to? My gosh, people are gonna be getting books galore. Because everybody has the same friends. Now, pick and choose your audience, right? It can cost you a fortune, but if you're that one person who stepped outside of social media and said, hey, congratulations. Okay, I mean, I write personal note cards all the time, birthdays, anniversaries, all this stuff. I do it with all of you. Okay, not because I have to, but because we all love getting something. When you all flip through your mail, we all do this, right? Oh, a card. A card. I got a card. It's like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Santa Claus at the North Pole mail. Oh my God, a card. Who's it from? What is it? You're gonna open it. Now, by the way, don't do a pre-stamped label. Oh, I got labels and I got this label and I got, no, handwrite it. It takes seconds. Send it to them, all right? So I say that because I want you to get out of social media. This helps you plan your social media, okay? So you need to be in social media, but you need social media as a tool to get what you need, and that's leads. How many leads? 8. Okay, I'm gonna send out more than 8 books next month. Okay, but you know, it's just one idea of why when I say get out of social media, but use social media, that's what makes it personal. By the way, in social media, you need to be social.
Yes.
Don't do what I did. I would always go in and list my, I got a new listing, and then I'd sign off. I got a new listing, then I'd sign off. Because I used it like a bulletin board. And then finally somebody said, you know, hey, Dean, you know, they call it social media because you're supposed to talk. So when people post, hey, congrats on your new listing, like it, comment on it, do something. My dreaded day on Facebook land is my birthday. I want to take my birthday off my profile every year. Okay, but there's something about getting all that love. And I'm the guy who has to respond to everyone.
Yeah.
So if I did not like or heart or care or comment or something on your response to my birthday, I apologize now because that's how I think. I have a friend who thinks like me. She won't join Facebook because she'll feel she'll have to go find people to like. Like that's how she is. It's like, I can't do it. She's got a little calendar in her purse and she writes notes. Everything you tell her you're doing, she calls me if I say I'm doing something. She's my dental hygienist too. She writes everything in files, right? So she'll write down what I say I'm doing and all of a sudden I'll get a text. Hey, how did your trip go? Like, I haven't talked to you in 4 months. Well, how do you remember this stuff? And I finally asked her. I said, how do you have a memory like an elephant? She said, no, I write everything down. I want to know and I want to acknowledge it. She said, that's why I will go on Facebook because I feel like I have to acknowledge it. But that's how I am with my birthday. Somebody took the time to say happy birthday to me. Same thing with your post. Don't post anything if you're not willing to interact. That's what people want. That's what people want. You can do all the fancy videos, you can do the fancy reels, you can do all of that stuff. But if you're not replying, and by the way, reply to other people. Get out there and reply to other people. This isn't all about you. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's not all about you. Get out there and find things to comment on and send them a book or a card or something like that. But get out and be there. So who was it? The example of the posts. Would you mind just sharing that story real quick? So, and speak up a little bit just for the microphone.
When I moved over to HomeStop, I received tons and tons of shares of my posts of people I didn't even know, people I never knew. So I would go on and just invite them to my page. One person in particular was John. That was here.
John, who was our speaker, John Burst.
I hadn't met him or anything. When I moved over here, I started sharing all my things, everything I posted, he shared, he liked. So I started going on doing the same thing that you said, saying thank you. And then he came up to me this morning and said, I love your post at Jim. I said, I didn't meet you.
Right. And Danielle, sound check. Could you hear that? Might not. have her microphone.
It was a little muffled.
Oh, yep, no, thank you. That's why I wanted to ask. So,
From doing that, commenting on people and things like that. When I moved over here, I had 2 listings from her.
wow, awesome. So congrats. Yeah. Well, and for audio purposes, Jen was sharing that all of her posts started getting shared by people she didn't even know. And one of those people was one of our speakers today, John Burrs, who literally posted everything. You didn't know him and people just shared, you commented. It's like you knew each other. It's like, oh my God, how you been? Oh wait, I don't even know you. Right. That's exactly right. You know, and we have the same thing even in our collaboration group, right? I love it when you guys meet each other for the first time. It's like, oh my God, I know you from the group, right? You know, but that's the same thing with social media. So this exercise here, this sheet is your 90-day social media plan. First tab, first 30 days. Second tab, second 30 days. Any guess what the third tab is? 30 days, right, good answer, okay? So you're gonna set yourself up, now over on the right is your tasks, did I do it? Those numbers on the right are 1 through 30. Any idea what that might represent? Days in the month. Set yourself up for what you need to do each day. Because if you're doing it, it will ultimately result in your outcome and your goal. Is it a fair statement to say it's easier to do 1 post a day than it is to do 30 a month?
Yes.
Yes.
I want you to hear that. It's so much easier to do 1 a day than it is to do 30 a month because 30 is so overwhelming. Because the mind is trickery. It's setting yourself, oh my God, I gotta do 30 this month. Where am I gonna find the time to do that? Well, you know what? Better yet, don't do that. Just do 1 today. Oh, okay, that's better. Oh, it's the inner struggle. It's the inner struggle. Okay, so you have to set yourself up to do the things that will ultimately reach that goal. How many of you are willing to do that? Okay, awesome. So we're right on that time. Any questions, any thoughts on any of this? Anyone?
I thought it was great.
Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, again, one-on-one, if you need help, come see me. We will send to everyone all of these attachments, okay? Any feedback on our speakers today? Good stuff?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I thank you all for being here. Thank everybody for tuning in remotely. Again, the recording we will be sending out for those who couldn't make it. And we will always continue to do things like this for you guys to help keep you in business and make you uber successful. So thanks for making the time. It was a long day. I get it. So thanks for being here. Bye, guys.